as always, thank you for watching. You know, I didn't realize until this moment that wearing green camouflage in front of a green screen is probably a bad idea. But if I become invisible, then that means the camo is working. It's beating a dead horse to say this, but the impact of Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare cannot be overstated. Not only did it set the metric for every FPS multiplayer game since, but it was the first game to
I would say that. I feel like Halo did that. Halo literally came out before COD, I'm pretty sure.
And every first-person shooter was either still set in World War II because, frankly, it was easier to make, or completely disregarded realism and was just heading in the direction of sci-fi, like Halo. To put it into perspective, in 2007, the same year COD 4 released, Call of Duty's biggest competitor, Medal of Honor, had just released Vanguard and Airborne. Both decent games in their own right, but there's not really a competition as to who became more influential. Now on PC, people who were looking for multiplayer shooters still had some alternatives. 2007 is also the year that Team Fortress 2 released, for example. But in the 2000s, consoles reigned supreme, and growing up when I did, you were either Team Halo or Team Call of Duty. Or both if you had a lot of friends and your parents liked you. I didn't have a lot of friends, if you couldn't tell. I say all of that to say, to understand the impact this game had, you have to place yourself into the mindset of someone who has never seen anything like this before. You come home from school, turn on your Xbox 360 or PlayStation 3 if you're lame, and are greeted by our first mission. Before every mission, we hear a briefing that describes to us what our objective within that mission is. And in this first one, we get an idea of the world the games take place in. We hear that Russia is in the midst of a civil war, the two sides being those still loyal to the Russian government or the loyalists, and those who are trying to revive Russia to its Soviet Union cores, or to a greater strength the country once had. That side being dubbed the ultranationalists. In this briefing, we're told whoever wins this conflict will not only take control of Russia, but Russia's nuclear arsenal of about 15,000 nukes. Or as someone named Price, pretend like you don't know who that is, refers to it as
just another day at the office.
We're also told that someone named Al-Assad is looking to take control of Saudi Arabia, but more on that later. And then finally, the men speaking say they have a new recruit on the team, and our first mission begins, Britain. Our first mission is titled FNG, and stands for, if you grew up in a Christian household, Flippin' New Guy. And true to the title, we are a new recruit for the British SAS. The British SAS, or Special Air Service, is one of Britain's special forces. They're recruited out of other military divisions within Britain. So while our player character may not be new to the military or combat, they are new to this team. Which, playing as the new guy, is a great, if stereotypical, opportunity for us to learn the team as well. At the beginning of every mission, and this will be true throughout the series, digital text appears in the bottom corner to tell us about the mission we'll be playing. Things like the mission's title and location, and it's here that we can see the person we're playing as is Sergeant John Soap McTavish. It's almost weird to say that name out loud considering how influential that character's been, at least to me, because I'm weird. The mission opens in a firing range. We're told to grab a rifle and we begin to learn the basics of aiming and shooting. We learn things that have become a meme at this point, like switching to your sidearm is always faster than reloading. All of this is being told to us by another member of the SAS.
Is the executor afraid to face
Executor Kratos watermelon and then remarks,
Yes.
And then after this, we're told to leave the firing range. Funny enough, this area was originally intended to be part of the mission. There's going to be a section for throwing the bombs, there's going to be a segment for movement, and you can actually see where this area is going to be across the hangars. The devs ran low on development time and decided that we're going to have to next year, we're greeted by who is undoubtedly the famous character of the series.
What the hell kind of name is so?
Price has us rappel down a road and shoot house that in retrospect we'll see as a layout of the second. This is a fun vignette with targets popping up and a couple more flying specific directions, flashing, depending on how fast you get through the forest. The game will actually give a recommendation to play the rest of the campaign on based on your performance. People have speed limits. And it's apparent when they do that, the game is not going that fast. So all the sacrifices lines are go, go, go!
Are you fucking kidding me? Was it actually just because I had to
and
update my
first
PC?
real
dude?
campaign mission of the game,
Someday,
Price
we'll
says that
retire
the
from
target
this
is
job.
released
That
on
much?
a
Spend the rest
ship
of our
that is
lives
currently
having
in the
fun.
Bering Strait, and that the information on this cargo
Fuck,
came from
bro.
a Russian informant.
I just
There's a
had to
security
update my
detail
PC.
on board, but the crew is expendable.
That's kinda
Hence the
gay.
title of the mission, Crew Expendable. I know I've already said this
You have
once,
come here.
but you have to
We
once
owe you
again
our
place
lives.
yourself in the mindset of someone who's only grown up with World War II video games.
That
And
was
suddenly, you're thrown into
Outnumbered,
this.
outgunned,
Once again, playing
but
as
those
so we
Imperials
are
never
on
stood a
board a
chance.
helicopter preparing to raid the ship.
How
Across
did you
from
see
us,
that?
Captain Price
Saw
smokes
the
a
whole
cigar
fight in the
amongst the
security
crew
hall.
at night that
Pretty
we're about to
incredible.
fight in. We
I've seen
rappel
some
onto
good
the first
fights.
deck and begin taking out the crew. The layout the same as the shoot house from FNG. As we make our way to the lower level, the attack becomes more dynamic. Smaller
Just
fire
wait
teams
until I
break
get my
out
hands
to
on
cover
Kranis.
rooms off the flanks of
Then you'll
Hollands.
see
A
something
drunk
really
crew member
impressive.
stumbles out of his room
Kranis is
before
what
he's
the
shot
Imperials
down.
call their
Oh.
leader.
Sleeping crewmates
He
are
took
quietly
Dr. Gantrell.
assassinated. We make our way across
Tucker.
the deck of the ship, and
His
as we
tracking
come
chip
into our
says he's
first
right there.
firefight of the game, it's
The
apparent
Sith
the
carved it out of
security
the
detail
doctor's
stands
skin
no
and threw
match
it
to the
in the
precision
corner.
of the SAS.
He screamed the
Military
whole
might
time.
immediately settles the score when a helicopter comes through and lasers down all of the targets
we are.
on the floor above us. It is hard to explain how well this set the stage for a new era of shooters. And I know for a lot of this I've been speaking in generalization. There were games previously that tackled the modern age, a lot of like the Tom Clancy games, for example.
Do you know
But
where
for
they
the
were headed?
majority of
The
audiences who
Imperials
played
demanded
COD 4 in
access to the prison's
2007,
power core,
this was the
but
first
those
time
levels
they
are
ever
sealed.
experienced anything like
There's
this.
only one
I
key
mean,
to the
sure,
core,
they
and we
heard
secure it
stories or saw
inside the main
movies or
research
news
vault.
footage
Only
of
Dr. Gantrell can
helicopters
open.
shooting down targets or people rappelling onto ships. But as cheesy as it is to say, this is the first time they ever got
If
to
they
do
need
it.
Dr.
The
Gantrell
series
for the
will only
code,
go up from
they
here,
won't
but
kill
this
him.
is certainly a
Dr.
way to
Gantrell's a
set the
brilliant
standard of
scientist, but he's
spectacle
not a
for
brave
a
man.
modern military shooter.
He'll give
It
them
also
the key.
sets the standard for
Wait,
a lot of the character moments
more.
we'll get throughout the game.
Our
When
team created a
preparing to
number of
breach a
advanced
door, Gaz
warfare
says,
prototypes by combining Republic and alien
which is a reference
technology.
to the film Aliens,
The
I
Empire
believe,
attacked.
but most people
We
probably
hid the
think it
weapons
just came
in
from
one of
this
the
game.
vaults
As
near
the
the
team
Republic
fights
So
through
the
the lower
Republic
decks,
also
they eventually
aliens?
clear
Let's find
the
them.
cargo they've been looking for.
We
The writing
bold
inside of the
time when
cargo
he has aliens.
containers an Arabic, another connection to the Saudi Arabian plotline mentioned earlier. And at the same time, the team is told that there are fast-moving jets on the way. So grabs the manifest, and as they begin to make their way
I
out,
think I can
the ship
spare
is
a few
suddenly
minutes to keep
hit
deadly
with
weapons
missiles.
out of criminal
Price radios the
hands.
helicopter to tell them they're on their way
Thousands
up,
of
pulls soap off the ground.
As bad as that sounds, Kranis is worse.
It really is hard to
Jedi.
express
You
how
can't turn
many
your back on this.
influential or iconic moments from the series come in even the first couple levels. The ensuing escape from the ship also does something that I don't think the game gets enough credit for.
I can't put
This
the
will
entire
change
galaxy
the
at risk.
further we get on
I'll
into
go
the
deal with
series,
those
but
prototypes
early
myself.
on, Call of
You
Duty
just get
did
to the
a
research
great
vault and
job
save
at
Dr.
creating
Gantrell.
these
Yeah, you
big
fucking go
spectacle
deal with the
moments
prototypes.
that were also grounded. Like for example, throughout Crew Expendable, we are
should go
a
fucking
special
do something,
forces
guy.
group that have been sent to
You're
take
making-
out
yeah,
the
thanks,
crew
babe.
of a ship at
Fucking
night.
sticking up
All
for
of
me.
that's
Guys
cool
trying to
and
make me
really
fucking do
high-level
everything over
operator
here.
stuff, but it's not outside of the realm of possibility. It's not like we're one guy being sent by ourselves to wipe out an entire base yet. But in Crew Expendable, we get to do really cool stuff that also seems feasible. And this escape is very similar to that. We run out of the ship as the catwalk begins to crumble beneath us. The ship itself is filling with water. As we turn corners, our camera actually tilts with the ship itself. And as we come out onto the deck, a helicopter is waiting with the cargo door open. But the ship is still sinking, so Soap has to jump for it, barely catching onto the helicopter.
Enjoy it. I love you. See ya.
No.
No.
You told me you would save her.
You told
In
me
your
to save her.
rage, you chose a different path.
As Vader continues to accept the realization that Padme is now dead, Palpatine tells him that she's
Dude,
gone
Padme
and that
has
the
been-
dark side can't
scared
bring
to
her
turn on
back.
that.
However, in her death, she gave him a gift. As our attention drapes over the scene, we come to Vader's left hand as he shapes his fingers into a pincer like he always does when he's about to force choke someone. However, it has no effect on his master, as he is far too strong in the Force.
Now you must choose. Will you accept that gift? Will you use it? Or will you die?
As Vader bows lower before his master, submitting to him and accepting his fate obediently, Palpatine suddenly fires Force lightning at him, unleashing the full power of the dark side upon his apprentice. Now, he does this for two reasons. The first being to show him how vulnerable his suit is towards lightning, to make sure that he won't try anything new. And two, because he wants to fight back. He wants to see what he's really made of. Full transformation. Also the fact that Sidious does this literally event is absolutely ridiculous. We now get a glimpse of how evil and torturous he was. As Sidious asks himself, his life to defend himself, Vader says, as Palpatine yells in defiance of his failure, he calms down, telling Vader that the blade belonged to another, a Jedi, meaning his former self, Anakin Skywalker. As he draws his lightsaber from his sleeve, he tells Vader that he is now a Sith. Recognizing the traumatic day that he's had, which is an understatement, he threatens to finish what Obi-Wan couldn't if he ever touched him with the Force again. As Vader rises from the smoke of his armor, Palpatine senses his quest for Jedi blood, telling him to sheathe it for now, as the Galactic Empire has much larger matters that require his full attention, leading him to the streets of Coruscant.
Never again will we fear the Jedi.
Like,
The grace of our
I used to get mad fucking gifts. I was able to get the hero. He drops. A couple of nights ago when I was at a lower level, I'm down like, you know, as soon as I reach 35, I stop getting items that I can get. They rationing the gifts. I'm kind of tight that there's no other like women or nothing, like romance.
Jedi lightsabers into a massive arc. It's pretty obvious what they're about to do with it. Presumably, these sabers are collected from dead bodies in the Jedi Temple after Anakin massacre. Now, I want you all to look closely with me as Mas Amedda maniacally looks to the last saber, holding it to the sky, to be burned, and with it, the perceived memory of the Jedi altogether. That is until Luke shows up.
We have entered a new age. An age of freedom.
We can actually see that he's holding a lightsaber of none other than Jedi Grandmaster Yoda, as he throws it into the hands of Palpatine.
Jedi Grandmaster Yaddle.
Freedom. None understands. None but you and I. Do you know why our blades are red? No, Master. The Jedi teachings of this subject were incomplete. Ha! The fools hid the knowledge they found uncomfortable. They could not face the dark truths, and they paid the price. The red saber is no different than any other, except it has been made to bleed. The crystal from any Jedi saber will do. As you know, the Kybers are alive in their way. Like any living thing, they can feel pain. Through the dark side, you must pour pain into the crystal. And when last the agony becomes more unstable, a beautiful crimson, the color of your rage. Do you understand, Lord Vader? Yes, you could have given me any one of those lightsabers to corrupt, even Yoda's. But you do not. The saber of a Sith is not given. It is taken.
As the story now switches scene to the mid-rib, we see the monster of Vader being flown on a distant planet. Here is where Vader must track down the Jedi to obtain the Sith lightsaber.
You're not Vader. Here, fight us. I need your help.
What's that?
I had a vessel brought here for you to use. It appears to have been stolen. This lawless gift, truly, it cries out for our guidance. Embrace the dark side. Bend it to your
Embrace
will
the dark
and provide everything you need. Your power will become endless.
Lockdown. What the fuck?
And then we shall rule as one.
We are greeted with the clones that retreated back to the Emperor to do his various tasks for them. One of such tasks were to collect all artifacts,
That's
holocrons, and lightsabers from the Jedi outposts
I
throughout
would
the
fucking
galaxy.
do that.
As the comic begins in the mid-rim Jedi outpost,
I didn't know
a
they
clone
had
is seen
instant
waving
teleportation
around
like
a Jedi's
that.
lightsaber.
I am a Jedi.
I am a
If you really
Jedi.
were Jedi, you'd be dead. Come on, Kicker. I had to do something to liven up this assignment. We've survived, what, 100 missions? I honestly think this is the one that will kill me.
What the
As
fuck
they
is this?
continue
Is
to
it
manage the
guard?
holocrons,
Is there even anybody
lightsabers,
in there?
and
You're guarding
artifacts from their
nothing.
inventory list, they exclaim their distaste for the waste of their potential and training. As the clone continues to converse the rumors they've overheard, one mentions that they've beaten the Separatists, while the other clone tells him it won't be them who fights the new threats.
What do you mean? I shut down the facility. Still train up the last
As the clone continues to explain how he believes their fighting days are over, the group leader speaks up.
We've put incoming.
As Vader's ship enters the airspace, he is contacted by the clone, telling him not to get any closer or else they will be forced to engage in war. Now, we should remember that at this point, the clones have absolutely no clue who Vader is. The galaxy thinks Anakin Skywalker will sit on the ship, along with the exterminator, General. As Vader continues to move in territory, the clones engage in heavy fire upon him, not knowing who or what is coming.
Wind it up. Roger that.
Roger that. A long one.
He got his bones. Hurry.
There is no I know where they are.
As the clones from the base look on in horror from the computers, they start to realize that maybe all the Jedi aren't dead. That just maybe they missed one, and he's back for vengeance.
Whoever he is, he's managed to deactivate the way station security protocols.
So
That means he's about to dock. If we can protect him, prove our worth, maybe word gets back to the Emperor. Maybe he keeps us around. Maybe we get to put on those red helmets, stand right next to the Emperor himself.
You've already gained access to the maximum
Ready yourselves,
security.
troopers. He's coming through.
I didn't expect
As
my
Vader
men to kill
breaks
you,
down the
but
heavy
I
metal
was
door, the
hoping
clones are
they'd
struck
So is
with
it a guy?
fear as they wonder who the heck is that, never having seen this monster before
your
in their
plan.
lives.
I'm not gonna stop, Kranis.
As the room is
Sooner
filled
or
with
later,
blue
we'll
blaster
get you.
fire, Vader uses the force to move the attacks away from him,
but I
being
have
hit
my
a
own
few times
resources.
in the leg and
I
shoulder
want
as he
one
slams
plan
through
to
the
destroy
walls
this world.
into one another.
My
Keep
commander
the
is
pressure on.
planting
Concentrate on
explosives on a
firepower.
volcanic
We've got
rift.
it.
The
As Vader
detonation will
tests his
trigger
new body with
cataclysmic
force powers, he
eruptions.
crumples the trooper
Geysers
with
of
a heavy
molten
box.
lava will kill millions.
Having enough of this nonsense, he summons a nearby lightsaber with the force to his grasp.
Okay, that's definitely a Jedi. But what is 66? I thought we killed them all. Say it a little louder, Dick. He might not have heard you.
Now,
Says it loud, Dick.
Vader lunges at him with the force and presses his attack,
Commandos are
swiftly
planting
slicing
explosives on
each clone with a hot knife.
Russians, geysers, and molten lava will kill them, including you. They're getting desperate.
As
All
Vader
these
walks
little
over to
traps
the
are
computer,
spreading your forces
he
too
asks
thin.
his droid.
You won't have anyone left when I finally catch up with you.
All Jedi
If all goes as planned,
before the
don't
execution
will never
of
happen.
66.
So this is just a distraction.
One you cannot afford to ignore, not unless you want the Emperor to win. If you're going to stop my commandos, I suggest you hurry.
Required
I'll press
data
on
on
without
any
you. I'm
Jedi
sure
who
you
took the
understand.
Barish vow prior to the purge.
The Barish vow?
clarify.
Well, not if I
for this
sneak,
information.
you know,
I
past the
do not
commandos.
expect to be questioned. I expect to be obeyed. As long as I serve you, I will do both. If I ask for a question, it is because I believe the answer will enhance my service. Potential responses to your query include over 14,000 Jedi since the founding of the Order. I can recite all available data on these Jedi. It will take several months, or you
My
can
God,
clarify.
dude, I'm gonna
Either is
fucking
acceptable to me.
My master ordered me to take the Kyber crystal for my lightsaber. From
My
the
master
Jedi I have
ordered me to
defeated
take
in combat. Because of the purge, the task has become difficult. I require a living Jedi. Finding a Barish Taker seems the easiest route, if one exists. Any Jedi pursuing Barish has sworn to refrain from activities related to the Order. Complete disengagement from anything but the Force. It is a type of penance. While a Barish Taker would have felt the purge, they would have not allowed themselves to respond to it, or take action of any kind.
Stand by for examination and suggested progress.
Gone into hiding after Order 66. I understand. Lord Vader, thank you.
There's some
Resuming
credits.
search protocol. Lord Vader,
Like 1,000
explosive
characters.
device detected. Take
Might as well, I'm right here.
the explosive device did not explode.
Before I forget.
Yes, I am aware.
Get down on your knees. You're coming with us. Coming with us? Just shoot him, Ding. I have a better idea. We know what Jedi are capable of. They're powerful, but they have limits. There's no way he can do anything to us while he's keeping that grenade from exploding. We'll get him in restraints, and then he's ours. And then what? And then we'll take him back to the Emperor. Offer him up like a prize. Who knows what he'll give us if we bring him a Jedi traitor. No more retirement. Red helmets, for sure.
Troopers, you have made a mistake.
Oh yeah? What's that?
I am not a Jedi. I have no limits. Have you completed your search? I would prefer that this phase of the operation be completed quickly.
I have it, Master. Search complete. It is a lifetime having before. He has been on his pilgrimage since before you entered the Jedi Temple. He is not even more than Jedi. His name is King Arthur.
Yeah, these are all the most fucking stories.
If I could show that even when he was, he did not take part in diplomacy training or research. Apparently, Master Infila had precisely one purpose to fight.
So, in today's issue, we meet Kirak Infila, the mysterious Jedi Master who took the Barish Valley. Now, for those who don't know and watch those videos, it's essentially just this oath
Let's
taken
call the
by
men
Jedi
of
to refrain from all activities of the Order. In this master's case, he had the claim to Order 66, however, refrained from responding to it. As we see him fight his Jedi training droid, the Rib, we get a slight demo of mastering Jedi's abilities. As his droid says,
Fighting Wallace and Malfoy's wants, choose, and wants, Master Infila. It seems well-advised, even.
which shows us just a little bit of his skill in fighting. It's clearly magical, especially seeing as how he keeps of peace, or so he thinks. Coming to a dead stop in his training, he looks into the distance and utters,
Something is coming. Something dark. Prepare the mountains to visit.
As Vader his droid tells him as the ship is hit by a massive tsunami, sending the ship crashing into the ground. His droid tells him that the system will be online in no more than 2 days, hoping that he will wait until then. Vader, who he is, leaves the ship
You're not helping me?
for the Jedi.
What the fuck?
I do not wish to
This is just standing there the whole
As Vader
time.
dodges
What
and
was
looks
that?
up to the cliff's peak, he sees the Jedi he has been searching for. Wasting no time, he reaches out and chokes him using the Force until the Jedi has enough and sends a shockwave blast to disarm the attack, asking Vader if it was him who caused the shift in the Force of all the Jedi's death.
For my transgressions, I took the Barish vow and never known close until my true path to the Jedi. I declare my Barish complete for my brothers
sisters are dead, and their murder stands before me. I know my father, and its end is also yours. This mountain is called Pascal. It is a sacred place designed to test all that I come here. The higher you go, the more demanding the challenges become. I will await you at the summit, Beast, on the highest round. Come, seek me out.
It's kind of too good to be true, but it's official. Vader gets taunted with the high ground once again. As Vader tries to walk up the mountain, he's
I have the high ground.
that Enfila opens, drowning him in a whirlpool of island water. Having looking up and causing a force shockwave several minutes before, he made his way up the mountain to the bombarded Raptorians. Now Raptorians are these giant eagles, and they sink their talons into his flesh and body until he uses the force to break their beaks and send them crashing into the stones below, not without losing the protective coverage of the suit on his leg. As the Jedi Master orders his droid to deactivate all traps, he allows Vader to advance faster and use Vader, of course, pushes the Jedi Master and fights his droid, taking him
just wait till I let my force
two circle each other until they consume green flashing until Vader's cybernetic leg starts to give out on him and snaps mid-fight, putting him to his knees and a green lightsaber to his throat. As Enfila tells Vader,
Once you are dead, I will seek out your master. Restore the light of the Jedi to the galaxy. Think of that, monster!
As he forcefully pushes Vader violently to his tomb, sending him into the shadowy darkness. The comics sadly ends with being forced to patiently wait for the following issue, but I know it will be literally picking up from Vader's fall. As he lays atop a boulder that broke his fall, he moans in the agonizing pain that his body is in. When he is brought to his senses by the Jedi Master, the kneeling droid that he discarded him earlier in the fight, who tells him,
You are defeated.
I require my ship.
Here we have Jedi Master Enfila going to see Marina, his mechanic on the planet who kept his ship parked for too many years to remember.
Years, Marina, all of which you were paid for. Restore my ship.
As she begins to immediately work on his ship, he informs her that he has killed the ship and must fly to fight to kill the master, saving him. When he is struck by a dark tremor, no, it's not possible. When another
shot my time.
I sense
You bastard. Your saber.
Duelist back inside. I'm going to end this.
As the Jedi Master and the Galaxy battle one another at times,
Attack first, bitch.
half swallowed they are interrupted by something that is now. When Vader uses the force to push them, this causes Master Enfila to drop his guard and counter by saving them. Now, when it comes to a duel of force, Vader is the second strongest once he gets the duel. And I say Vader's only second because of the hindrance of the duel with Obi-Wan. Otherwise, he was destined to be more powerful than Yoda and Palpatine. As the Master Jedi saves the man, he screams, "You're a monster!"
Yes, I am.
As Vader breaks the entire
Did I talk to Kyle that whole time?
You can't do this. I won't let you.
Oh fuck, I forgot to this one.
Master Enfila tells Vader that this is about the Jedi and the Sith, and not about the innocence of the planet. Vader tells him,
You are who
and drains upon the high lightsaber, summoning him to his Now, all he could do was finish the As he lifts the master in the air, his radiant mind is consumed by feelings. What is the game? As Vader unleashes his fury and his new power, dropping the lightning city, he crushed the Master Jedi, putting him to the wall of the sea and sending the Jedi to the depths of the ocean. As Vader stood atop the wall, his tattered and torn glowing on the salt earth, the seas, over the sea was destroyed. He examined the weapon, for alas, now his personal the only thing left was the big crystal.
There,
Believe.
good as new.
As Vader reads the book,
not gonna.
he sees the transmission by Sidious, who tells him his ships were brought over to This is where he would learn to living crystals radiant, green, red. As Vader begins to touch down, Sidious tells him to prepare for the host of energy at its core, and this would be the perfect place for him to turn his crystal red.
Here you will reclaim yourself. From the site of your greatest defeat, you shall rise strong, unbroken, powerful.
As Sidious tells him that the Jedi weapon in his hands contained the alive crystal which pulses with light side energy, and that the task will not be easy, but rather test his abilities in both mind and the Force.
When you arrive on Mustafar, find the place where the dark side calls you. Draw upon
As Matthew tells him to corrupt the crystal, teaches him to show him his limits, and to make it safe for him in the darkness. As Vader follows the path of the Force, he enters a world which, as clearly as ancient civilizations, sure will learn about it. You can see the ancient building inscribed on the stone wall. Vader walks to the round table at the surface, places the Jedi weapon on it, and begins to take it apart. His cybernetics exposed, just like his true feelings. And therein lies the choice of his destiny. This moment could Vader break free to go for life, or would he fall to his own? As Vader takes the green out of his he examines it closely. As it begins to go, he tries to put his feelings into it in order to change it to dark side. He's here. His eyes no longer blue. As he gets up to put the crystal back, he leaves the Force and to see his master.
My apprentice, you have beaten. Were you successful in your quest? I was.
When Vader ignites the green blade and puts it to his master, challenging him to duel to the death.
So you made your decision. I have.
As Palpatine ignites his lightsaber, he twirls at Vader just as he had against Master the Jedi with him in the very same room. As Vader fights his master for what he turned him into, using all aspects of the Force, light, dark, it didn't matter.
Chosen weakness.
Whatever killed the monster that entombed his life to this darkness that reminded him of his doom with each breath. As Vader finally moves his lightsaber and slices right through him, spurting blood everywhere, he drops his master to the floor of his office and walks away as he replies,
Yes, I.
I'm gonna fucking fight every
as he
goddamn
goes to
mom.
make amends with everyone, he travels to find him, bowing to his real master, removing his helmet and sword.
Obi-Wan.
As Vader awakens, he refuses to allow that Force vision into his reality and his destiny. He will not allow this. Grabbing the crystal, this time with force, anger, pain, hatred, polluting all the emotions he had into the living object that will swing his rage for the rest of his his life.
No, I refuse. This is all there is.
Throwing all of his hatred, betrayal, fear, sorrow, and everything broken within the boy who dreamed of becoming a Jedi. As lightning crackled from the fiery skies above and lava swirled around him like the pain within his black soul, he let out a scream as if he were being born 1,000 times.
Oh, we're right before I hit the ground. Let's go. I'm the perfect.
Face your excellence. Please, your surprise.
He assures them that he is a perfect. Now, mind you, this is the first time that they see Vader. There's no clue who or what he is.
The witness.
As we start the first page of the edition, on the very picture is observing displayed on the table as his grades carefully prepared. As Sidious walks over to the battle table and reveals his weakness, he tells him,
You have proven yourself. Successful. That is all that matters. Now resist of a seed.
As he tells Vader the droid to fix his suit, much like his weapon, the suit must be built to its leaving Vader to construct his armor wherever he sees fit.
Adjust the sword as you see fit. That is the apprentice. When
as Sidious leaves, Vader gives we hit a cloaked figure reminiscent of the time that once was, a time that he refers to as filled with darkness.
Lord Jedi, deal with them.
As the mysterious figure looms over the edges of the temple, whispering about conflicts and such now restricted nature, Vader behind him. As the intruder follows suit and ignites a red lightsaber, to engage in a heated duel in the very halls that murdered the Jedi. Second into the wall, Vader nearly toys with the man, as we can now see that he is an Inquisitor, like we've seen in Rebels.
You are not too
As Vader breaks the Inquisitor down the ring, sees murder in the shadows just stops at the face before the Jedi. He begins to move forward, introducing and explaining who Vader is. We learn that the Inquisitor was commanding the Cersei to the enemies by hunting down and killing the Jedi. Vader stands perplexed. He questions his master, where Palpatine takes Vader to the industrial district to learn all about the Inquisitors and what he's been doing behind the scenes.
a project of my long plan. Slaves to the light side. What?
Of course, the public territory is literally the beginning of the
Hunters, one and all.
What do they hunt?
Those are some awfully big prison cells. Maybe we don't want
As
to
Vader asks who the Inquisitor is, Palpatine tells him that he was once a Jedi. Trained in the Jedi arts, however, resentful that someone with his skill was not allowed access to the higher councils, the greater secrets of the Order. This is somewhat similar of Anakin's dilemma of wanting to become a Jedi Master.
He has much
Wanted to
learn,
become more, but
as
not
do
being
the
able to.
others. You will teach them. Make them a blade that will cut the Jedi infection from the galaxy once and for all. I will begin immediately, my master.
As Palpatine goes on to tell Vader that most of the Jedi were wiped out during Order 66, however, some still remain.
Luckless, the deadliest, the
More.
most resistance. To tell me that to save their lives. You and the Inquisitors must find these Jedi. Vader, you must
Why must you
destroy
guys want to be slain?
For in truth, there is no greater threat to our empire.
So that wraps up the 6th issue of the comic. I personally am happy we got to see the first news of the year. So early after the purge. Now, that said, I have to give my full thoughts on it. You know, it's easy to say, oh yeah, I loved it, here's the video, click the link, and see you guys next time. But that's just not true to me and true to the channel. I have a major issue with this. Now, the Jedi at the end there is just constant. This is the old lady
Get up.
As Vader reaches the Jedi upstairs, Jason met his men. Being told that he will be trained, Vader starts to reply.
Defenses moving when there is no defense. I will be trouble. You will bring my lessons to the others. Any who does not progress will be eliminated.
As Vader motions towards the group, he explains that their mission begins now, as they go over a list from the Emperor who has documented all surviving Jedi from Order 66, informing Vader of the Emperor's hit on the most important and dangerous Jedi survivor, Jocasta Nu. Now, for those of you who don't remember her, she is the really rude, annoying librarian from Episode 2 Attack of the Clones, who tells Obi-Wan that if something isn't in the Jedi archives, then it simply doesn't exist. Okay, let's continue.
She is given extra emphasis, but I do not know why.
Now, while Vader and the Grand Inquisitor speak out about how useless and weak she is, I wonder why she was rated as the most powerful Jedi. As the scene goes she says the words. Flipping the page, we see her being delivered as a team. She to retire for the day when she pulls aside a crate full of Jedi. Saying so she clearly has that same sort of game. As Darth Vader takes the Grand Inquisitor to the Jedi Temple, he orders him to go through all the information.
Later, I've watched my whole life.
As the company runs through the mysterious waterfalls,
really just slacking, bro. I didn't look at this like I can't talk, bro.
She then stops dead in her tracks.
That's just the one she's in.
As Gar says that she doesn't need more, that her work is done in the archives of the Vader complete. That she can run away and be anything that she wants. The librarian tells her,
oh, my friend, don't you see? I haven't built an archive here. I've built a school.
Rather than telling him that her mission will be extremely dangerous, she says if the Force wills it,
that beast was about to eat me
and
alive.
Then they can truly begin. Asking what she means, she
I know. He was about to eat me too.
Need students.
Lord Vader, report.
As Vader tells his master that the Inquisitors will do their duty, the Emperor begins to change the subject. As the Dark Lord,
I've got to stop the Imperials. Where did they go?
Kranus took the key to the prison's power core. He intends to destroy it. Do you have any idea what that means?
And so, of all the remaining Jedi, why Jocasta Nu?
I'm not going to let Kranus reach the core.
Takes her lightsaber and
consequences of feats and seeds are unfathomable. The power core derives energy from hyperspace itself. A detonation will send shockwaves at light speed. Belsavis's destruction is only the beginning. The shockwaves will annihilate this entire system and consume the ones adjacent to it. Trillions will die.
They abused that power. They laid claim to every site of interest to the Force across the galaxy. Shrines, wells of energy, ancient temples. They took them and believed they were theirs by right. The Jedi planet
Kranus can't be too far ahead. I'll stop him before he reaches the core.
Please don't leave me.
Here,
seal me inside of one of the empty vaults until the Republic regains control.
Jocasta Nu to guard. Not just secrets of the light side of the Force, the dark side as well. Secrets that will not
stick close. I'll get you to safety.
Thank you. Head to the empty containment vault. I'll be right behind.
Stop there, citizen. Identify yourself.
She is little better than a witch.
As Jocasta Nu uses a Jedi mind trick on the clones, she walks into the Jedi Temple through a secret.
Oh, there's actually an extra cutscene.
She is no one at all. We see nothing at all.
I'll be safe here until reinforcements arrive. Thank you.
Palpatine has other plans for him. He tells Vader that he must refrain from killing her.
Lord Vader.
Stop Krennic before he detonates the power core. For all our sakes.
Colonel, I hope your division will show improved performance in the weeks to come. You may go.
As Palpatine continues to tell Vader that he mustn't use his powers on just anyone, that he, Sidious, understands the boredom that they may feel now that almost all the Jedi are extinct. However, to use one's powers for just any creature below them will turn one into a slave, into a tool, instead of the master.
I feel these things true, Vader, and this is good. These emotions open a door to the great power of the dark side.
As we see Jocasta Nu running through the temple, witnessing the ruins that it has been left in after Order 66, she gets a signal from B2, her droid back at the ship, warning her of being discovered. B2 detonates the ship and himself, alerting all Imperial forces in the area. As she enters the Jedi Archives, seeing the Grand Inquisitor following Vader's orders and studying everything that he can about the Jedi, marveling at how nothing interesting is in these books, we can see it hitting a very sensitive spot for Jocasta, where she tries to keep focused on the mission at hand instead of confronting him as she runs through the corridors.
A bomb, then?
Excuse me, sir. We found this. Thought you should probably take a look.
Jedi.
As they call it into Vader, we can see just how new Vader is to the Empire, as even one of the higher officials doesn't know of him yet.
Someone new. I've never heard of him. Strange name.
While Vader meditates in his chair, he is interrupted by a servant, who I believe is Vin Diesel, telling him that he is needed, as an incident has taken place in the city, a possible connection to the Jedi.
I'm sorry to disturb your meditation, my lord, but we have just received a report from the Imperial Security Bureau. An incident in the city, a possible connection to the Jedi.
Tell them I am coming.
Using the Force to move certain books around which trigger a key in the wall, Jocasta Nu moves through the secret doorway that just opened.
Master Activist Jocasta Nu, you have returned at last. I have kept my watch. Everything is exactly as you left it.
As Jocasta, the activist, moves through the Jedi Temple's hidden room, which what I can only imagine is part of the restricted section or something even more forbidden, we see all of the Sith holocrons sitting in display cases, with a giant one sitting right next to that case. As Vader stands amidst the investigation of the bomb's leftover pieces, the officer tells him that it was just a bomb, and the Jedi insignia was on it, merely just graffiti from those rebelling against the Empire. As the officer tries to tell Vader about his prestigious years of experience and that he doesn't really have to answer to him, Vader uses the Force to bring together the pieces of rubble and form them into what they once were. Jocasta Nu.
They're not connected, so Jack Brother. Fuck you.
In time, I'm sure
There is no time. A Jedi is on this planet. Take your team, search every level. Avoid only the former Jedi Temple.
The temple? But if a Jedi is here, it seems likely they might head there. Surely someone should search it.
Someone will.
As Vader swiftly turns on his heel, Cape billowing behind his strides, we enter the next scene where Jocasta Nu holds the most important piece of this issue, and realistically, the end of the Empire as a whole, if in the right hands, depending on your certain point of view, of course.
The Order's database of every Force-sensitive child we knew of in the galaxy, as of just before the Purge. A seed from which we will grow again. Goodbye. Thank you for your service. If fate wills it, we will see each other again.
Of course.
Greetings.
As the old Jedi Master leaves the hidden room, she glares at the Inquisitor, who mocks her books and throws them aside with distaste.
Don't be a fool. It doesn't matter.
Being safe out there.
Jumping down to the table below, she ignites her blue lightsaber to the throat of the Inquisitor, shouting,
"Get your filthy hands off my books!"
As Vader sped to the Jedi Temple, his anger and hatred growing with each flap of his cape billowing in the Coruscant night sky behind him, landing at the very steps where he marched the final force to spill Jedi blood during Order 66. He walked by his troops when one clone says,
"The temple is sealed, Lord Vader. What are your orders?"
Unless authorized by either the Emperor or me, no one enters, no one leaves.
As Vader moves up the grand
Oh, I
steps,
like
he is
this.
slowed by a
Info.
clone that asks him what they should be expecting, as they have no intel on the situation other than there's been a breach.
A little more information about who we're facing might enable me to make better tactical decisions.
Commander, were you involved
Commander.
in the implementation of Order 66?
Yes, I was here.
Order Chinga
My mark,
Sote.
all the clones did, shut those Jedi agitators down cold.
It seems, Commander, you missed some.
Who are you and how dare you defile this sacred place?
As the Grand Inquisitor stands at Lightsaber Point, he asks Jocasta if she recognizes him. After having denied him access to the higher
Actual
archives
person.
countless times, it should be obvious who he is. Standing back in shock, Master Jocasta asks if he is a Jedi. When the Grand Inquisitor ignites his red lightsaber and attacks her, as she whispers,
Sith.
No, not yet.
Sith.
Perhaps never, but close enough.
fighting a spiral of red and blue fire to move through the archives with the intent to kill. Jocasta asks him why he would betray the Order. The Inquisitor replied that he never felt right at the temple, how he always felt something was being denied of him.
Now at last, that void
Alright,
has been filled
yeah,
with purity of the
first
dark
person.
side. Back then I thought perhaps I could find what I was missing in these archives, and you would not let me look.
As Jocasta sends a wave of Force energy to push the Grand Inquisitor back, she tells him that if she denied him access, it was because she felt he was not ready for such knowledge. As the Grand Inquisitor tells her that he always wanted to strike her down, but knew the other Jedi would stop her, how she was not put with the other because of her. He kicks her to the floor
Really
against
takes no really fucking class.
telling her that there are no others Jedi. He swiftly slashes down as Jocasta says the same line she heard immediately. Stop. As they hit a wall, As Vader and the Inquisitor argue who should lower the weapon first, Jocasta takes the opportunity and
There, you want it to be
from the
slain
archives,
so bad.
firing Summoning her lightsaber, she steals
Oh, no!
the pillar to the second level.
Master Lu, you have nowhere to go. It was you, wasn't it? You killed this order, or you played a role in its end. You are a true
Oh.
As Jocasta tells Vader through the echoes that she was why he wants her alive, to attain her secrets, to reveal her knowledge of the archives.
To that Sith, I say one word.
To that Sith, I say one word.
Authorization codes accepted.
Never.
Activating purge sequence.
Never.
Sequence complete. All data.
Fuck, I'm so tired right now.
The Force forgive me. Your treasure is gone, Sith. All you have left is me.
As Vader tracks down Jocasta, he comes across a droid that was guarding the hidden room she entered in the last
Joe
issue. The room was
Acosta.
filled with old
Joe
Sith
Acosta.
icons and artifacts. As it scans Vader's
Joe
presence,
Pentecostal,
it declares,
Hello, bioscans indicate match to Jedi Master Anakin Skywalker. My apologies, Master Skywalker, but your presence in this vault is not authorized. If you would like access,
fine.
please follow the proper procedures to request.
Oh yeah,
use
you're fine. You
privileges
just fucking
of
flew
Master
to the
as
floor.
Vader hurls his red lightsaber at the security droid, certain
Look
it
at
will
you.
pierce through its droning head. The droid catches it and says,
Master Skywalker, I am the Guardian Protector of one of the most sensitive areas of the Jedi Temple, programmed to defend against any and all threats to its security. Of course, that includes techniques related to Jedi saber attacks, or perhaps Sith. In any case, I find addition to this vault's inventory.
As Vader dashes towards the vault, shouting for it to die, metal fists clenched. He detaches one of his arms and flings it across the
Here
room.
we
As the
go.
two begin to fight each other, metal Master Jocasta is seen searching for her, and he continues to fight her in a fully as Jocasta puts together what she's found, Vader punches the head of the vault and finishes it. And Jocasta ignites his arm with a massive sniper iron blast. It was Jocasta. She had equipped one of those powerful weapons in the Jedi archives, and Vader is sent flying backwards into a shattering wall. The scene she
want you to die.
As Jocasta begins to tell Vader that she feels the dark side emanate from his very memories, she follows another black hole, which to cover this weapon.
Oh, you did not just push into that shit.
As Jocasta she tells Vader that she knows twisted into Palpatine's tool, the stab. That the Force is eternal and will always be how does it exist?
Pushing my guys first and then that fucker her way. They kept pushing into that guy. Stop doing that.
Revealing a massive crater in the
Force pulling.
She summoned one of the several lightsabers carefully displayed in the wall. She dreaded blade from a very unique as she runs out
That's a Jedi. All troops, open fire.
As the clone troopers open fire on
Fuck
her,
was
they spot
that?
a second Jedi up top in the temple. However, to their surprise, it's Lord Vader wielding his red. As Jocasta and Vader block the oncoming fire, a clone commander up top sees Vader being attacked and immediately orders all troops to cease fire as he jumps aboard the vessel.
All troops, do not fire. That is a high-value target.
As Jocasta Nu falls backwards to take her life, she whispers,
I am one with the Force. The Force is with me.
falling from Jocata's finger. She freezes
Good as new.
there. Looking up, she says, seeing Vader hold her with the Force from above, summoning her to his grip.
Bring her aboard.
As the clone trooper brings Vader the memory crystal from Jocasta's secret archive that she hid in her robes, he examines it and inserts it into his belt, where all the names and data.
Come on, dude. Can this guy fucking fuck off?
This list. Names, locations,
There we go. I got another dickhead. I'm just gonna try and run.
Vader realizes that these are all targets remaining in Order 66. Jocasta Nu tells him that she knows.
Oh my god, I got a whole swarm of fucking enemies behind me.
He wants to be
Stop fucking playing with guys
As the trooper asks Vader if he can fire on Jocasta, the Jedi in question, Jocasta says,
Jedi, you idiot! You don't even know who you're
Oh my god, no way.
You're taking orders from a Jedi. This man is Anakin Skywalker, a Jedi Knight.
As Vader blasts all the troopers.
Did you guys seriously fucking follow me all the way out here?
What becomes of me?
As Vader ignites his blood-red crimson saber, the glow.
No way these fuckers are really following me. Oh my god. You guys want to fucking die so bad? They're fucking fags, dude. Oh my god.
I would hear the story.
We ran all the way over here just to kill me. Like, what the hell? What is the distance on that fucking target lock, yo? They followed me from all the way they literally followed me throughout the entire dungeon, yo.
The crystal with all the
I'm not fucking fighting all those guys. They're crazy.
As a means of securing his
trying to get to the fuck up. I'm tired of doing all these dungeons back to back to back to back.
Vader returns to his master.
Like, fuck, I wanna fucking fight outside.
Continues to watch over the hidden holocrons and data tapes.
I want to see some scenery. I'm tired of being in these goddamn same repetitive, boring dungeons.
He hits the detonation device.
It's the same thing, same thing. You just go in the fucking corner, you go in a circle, you just go in a, goddamn square. Just go in a square, 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 square.
Its vessels. It
Crap.
It already has. He knows. There are others waiting out in the
There,
galaxy.
good as
When
new.
the time is right, the Jedi will rise again.
We start today's issue off with Vader and the Ninth Sister investigating a bar fight that happened, where she tells him that reports were made of someone using the Force to get out of the fight. This makes Vader very...
You're too late.
The fact
The
that a new
detonite
Jedi
charges are
is
in
beyond
place.
loose, another
Even
Jedi
you
is out there. That Order 66 didn't really succeed as well as he hoped.
There's
He goes
nowhere
outside
left to
to
run.
enter the other
I'm putting
entrance
an
to the
end
bar
to your
when she
madness.
tells him that during
We're
the
all
time
going
that
to
she was a
die
Jedi,
here.
she knew
Differences
a gift.
I'll
whereas hers was the ability to detect emotions. And now that she's turned to the dark side,
What do you
that
do,
power
me?
is amplified
What
even
will I
more.
do?
As Vader leaves, she calls him a poor sadistic monster, obviously behind his back, dying for a fight, or rather, dying to die his miserable life. As Vader enters the bar, you get this old Western kind of feeling, when everyone goes silent as he asks the hive of scum
Fuck
and
yeah.
villain, what happened to the Jedi that was here? As everyone stops to examine who this man is, or rather this monster, up above on the railing, a literal family of 3 bounty hunters
Open
have
fire
their
in the
scopes on
Imperials.
him. Particularly a tractor beam
Better
scope
late than never.
on his lightsaber
It's
that
over,
he took
Kranis.
from Kira
Don't be a
and
fool.
Fila, and corrupted
Surrender.
the crystal to make it
For the
bleed
Emperor's
red.
glory.
Once he finally notices something is being snatched from his belt, he quickly reacts and pulls it to him with force. When the daughter of the family throws him corner, exploding in front of devices as his lightsaber breaks in half. As the family tells everyone that no one is going to get hurt, that they're just going to Jedi, Vader levels several Vader blades simultaneously force choking them all, hurling them as hard as he can at his assassins. But to prevent them, they activate their force shields, which can be safe.
I want to jump my men? Fuckers, not because I was sticking there. Handling the guys over behind, the bronies behind.
As the bounty hunters open fire on Vader, he raises bodies from the floor to create an organic shield around him. As they take the fire, keeping him safe amidst the blaze, allowing him a chance to escape, he flees for the door and summons his red crystal with him. While the hunters get away, Vader appears and accuses the 9th sister of betrayal, telling her that she was the one who ordered them here to kill him. When she assures him that it was not her, he summons her lightsaber and puts the emitter to her throat, telling her,
It is only a matter of time until I learn the truth. We shall see. Wait here until I return. If you flee, you will die.
Racing after his new targets in a high-speed chase, he dodges blaster fire after blaster fire, and raises entire transport units into the sky, hurling one at them when they quickly ignite their shields, only to wake in a fiery blaze. As they begin to come to, Vader grabs the daughter
What? Where the fuck is the last one?
throws her in the air, choking her to death.
Fucker.
Screaming and pleading for him to stop, they reveal that they don't know, for it was just an anonymous job sent through the hunter net. This is when Vader looks at them and says,
That is unfortunate.
quickly telling him that they can find out, bartering for him to let her go, or else they'll never tell, and if she dies, they'll have nothing to live for. He quickly releases her as they break the encryption code of the Order and trace it back to the one who sent the hit on Vader himself. As the hologram projector on their wrists reveal the location of the person responsible, Vader looks at the building as she says, "Looks like the Senate District in the Republic Executive Building."
Where?
I think all the way at the top. Today we start with Vader and the 9th sister traveling to Coruscant, where Vader's droid tells him,
The kill contract against you was sent from the highest levels of the Imperial Executive Building, which include the offices of Emperor Palpatine. There is a 97% probability the signal originated there. I see no evidence of slicing.
As Vader constructs his new lightsaber, he asks for all names of officers with access codes to level 1A1 and above. As they enter Coruscant, their comms link is jammed by someone, disallowing them to give the access codes to enter the planet. Being targeted by Coruscant defense systems, Vader pushes the 9th sister aside when she tells him that he better have some dark side tricks up his sleeve, as he says,
No tricks. Skill.
As they crash land on Coruscant, Vader meets up with Palpatine in the old Jedi Temple, where Sidious tells him that his fight with Jocasta was not a defeat, nor was it a victory. However, he's astounded by the amount of Sith and Jedi artifacts that she possessed.
The contract originated here, sent from the highest levels of Imperial government.
The highest?
Yes. Did it come from you?
I see you have rebuilt your lightsaber, Lord Vader. May I see it? improvements. I think the hint you took from Master Infila did not suit. If I wanted you dead, my apprentice,
Colonel Barta,
I would not
I was
require
told you
such
wanted to see me.
indirect methods.
First,
I
let me
thought
express my
perhaps a
gratitude. Your
test
actions
of
That's
saved
what you
many
fucking call
Republic
me in
soldiers.
person? To glaze me?
Test. I
Fucker.
teach.
Sidious tells Vader that if he wants to pursue his assassins, he can do so on his own time, as he has an empire to build himself. As Vader goes to meditate, we then
I'm
see
always
this
glad to
cross
help
scene
the
between
Republic
the actual
Army.
assassins and his
Some of my
deep force
superiors don't
trance.
trust your
As they're so
order.
conveniently
They'll have to
in this
revise their
masked
opinions
bar,
after
they reveal
this.
that they were the
I
ones
won't
who
waste
did
your
want
time,
Vader
but
dead.
there's something I need you to
They
clear
won't
up
stop
for me.
until he is. Now, one thing I want to point out
My
is that
forces
while they
apprehended
speak,
this
we
prisoner
can see
during
Vader
the
meditate.
riots.
And while
I
he
need to
does,
know why
for
one of
those
the
who have been
galaxy's
with me
worst
for a
criminals
while,
was
you may
helping
remember
you.
this video right here. This was where we saw Vader meditate in the same spot in the same way.
We'll try again and again and again if we have to.
I thought Hack was one of the guards.
Die.
You're telling me he was one of the inmates?
Die.
It's
As
true.
Vader ends his
I
meditation,
came here a
he
decade
goes
ago
to
as
his
a
master
prisoner,
and tells
and I
him
deserved it.
that no one in the
I did
Empire
things
knows
you
that
don't
he
want
is
to know
dead.
about.
And maybe this is why
Being
he
on
has been
Belsavis,
assassinated, because no one
surrounded by scum
expects
just
it.
like
They
me.
know he has
Open
strength,
my eyes.
but not his authority, not
Even
his
if I could
power.
never leave here,
Palpatine's power.
I could still change.
So, Sidious rounds up
Took
all
years,
the
but I
elite
did it.
Imperial officers in
The
the
warden
area.
made me an honorary
and tells
guard.
them,
It is
Said I
time
earned that.
to eliminate any confusion. This is Lord Vader.
You worked hard to turn your life around, and he
He
rewarded you for
speaks
it.
with my
Trying to make up for the
voice.
terrible
A
things
command
I've done.
From him is
The warden
as a
gave me that
command
chance.
from me.
So you
Pass this
claim.
information down to
Unfortunately,
your
we have no
men.
evidence to support
All
your
must
story.
understand.
It's possible the records were destroyed in all the chaos. However, it's also possible you're lying.
Azoras, Baroki, step forward. 2 attempts have been made on my life.
Whatever he used to be,
Evidence suggests
he's changed.
a conspiracy with
couldn't have
the
saved Belsavis
Imperial
without
officer
it.
corpse.
Now you
I
see
do
my
not
dilemma.
yet know
I don't
the
want to
precise
imprison
mechanisms
someone who
behind
doesn't
these
deserve it,
attempts,
but I don't want to set a
although
criminal free.
I have my suspicions. It does not matter. I will always survive. Every
If
time.
the warden made Hack a guard, someone knows about it.
But
keep him in the holding cell until you find the truth.
That sounds reasonable. Hack, we'll stay here until we get this all
As
straightened
the
out.
bodies drop to the floor,
It's better than going
strikes
back into
fear
Gen
into his
Pop.
officers officially. He turns swiftly on his heel and leads back to his chair, where he resumes his meditation
I'm sure you have business
and extinguishes
elsewhere.
every
Thank you
light
again
side
for
of
everything
Ocean
you did.
That's what you wanted me to come here
symbolized
for?
by those
Or
butterflies.
I guess that was a valid reason.
Cracking the
that
thick glass
prisoner
window
bullshit,
as he
but dude,
wakes.
You could have just
Next
called me
move
for that? You gotta make me
was
come here in
killers.
person and waste my fucking time? Oh, I'm tired.
Fire and lava ablaze, Vader is right back on Mustafar before he was beaten and burned by his former master. As Obi-Wan jumps to the high ground, he looks to Anakin and tells him, "It's over." You guys know the rest. When we see Vader say the exact same line Anakin
Use my
did
ship's
in Revenge of the
holocron.
Sith, standing in the exact same spot. However, this time, his
Oh, I can
powers
just fast
fully
travel my ship,
unlocked
but I gotta
in the
do all
dark
this extra
side, his
bullshit
rage burning
stuff.
hotter than the lava that sparked his inevitable doom. As he says,
You underestimate my power.
as Obi-Wan tells him not to try it, we all know what happened in the original timeline, where Anakin jumped and got sliced into pieces. Vader, now harnessing the dark side of the Force, lifts the lava onto Obi-Wan and then throws him into the air, slamming him to the ground. As Vader watches his old master recite the same lines, only now having switched places,
Master
the comic
Satele,
actually gets really
Executive
dark,
Kranis
which
and his followers
surprised
are
me, to say
dead.
the least, but in a good
Belsavis
way.
is safe.
As lava comes crashing down
Dead.
Obi-Wan's body
You
and
are
face,
dead.
melts him and burning him
The Emperor
alive
would never
as he
devote
devours
all
him
his
whole.
resources to Belsavis.
Vader just callously
He must
stands
find his
there,
other targets.
watching in amusement, remembering where he lay at the hands of Kenobi. As his mask lowers onto his scarred head, Lord Sidious's voice speaks to him.
Lord Vader, come to me. I have a task for you.
Yes, my master.
What if I continue with the Sith Lord?
The time has come for this empire to evolve. It must become more than a political abstraction. In the 3 years since my ascension, I have allowed a convenient fiction to persist that the Empire is merely an extension of the Republic. The Imperial Senate remains an illusion of many voices coming together to govern. In truth, there is only one voice, mine.
As Palpatine continues to talk, he basically tells Vader that the Mon Cala are very defiant to the Empire. As Sidious tells Vader that it is time the Empire show its true strength to the galaxy,
One of the best
Vader
scouts
asks him
volunteered
if
to
the weapon
investigate.
is ready, where Sidious tells his apprentice,
No.
Sneaking into enemy territory is dangerous.
Inform me
Who
its
is this scout?
primary weapon
He's
is
the man
not
you replaced
yet
on Master Brava's
operational.
strike team.
But
Joe
we have
Archer
many
attempted to infiltrate
weapons.
the Imperial
Star
space station where the
destroyers,
Sith are
the
meeting,
new
and
fighters,
haven't checked
they
in
will
since.
suffice.
I know you
My
and Jomar
master,
have had
I
differences,
will lead
but
a
I believe he's
military
onto
maneuver
something.
against Mon Cala if you wish, but I am no longer a general.
As Palpatine tells him that he is still demoted, he informs him that there is something fishy going on with the planet of Mon Cala, that he thinks they are cooperating with a Master Jedi. Vader jumps at the word, bowing to his master.
After
as
the
he is
accusations
instructed
he
to
made
find
to the
out
council,
who the Jedi
I doubt
is,
he'll help me.
if there is one,
Assuming he's
to put
alive.
a stop to it,
My only
and
concern
any
is
more that
uncovering the
survived
Emperor's
Order
plans. We need
66.
to know
As the
what's
scene
happening
shifts
on that
past
station.
Tarkin aboard the
is
Imperial
worth
Star
pursuing.
Destroyer, we see his subordinate
transmitting
suggest to use
coordinates to the space
firepower
station.
on the
I have no
planet,
advice
where
for getting
Tarkin
inside.
tells him that the
Leave
negotiations
that to
must
me.
resume diplomatically,
Force be with you.
as Mon Cala is a valuable planet to the Empire with many advantages. To blow it up would be poor judgment so soon. Besides, he says how Palpatine really enjoys Mon Cala aquatic ballet, telling them he will not destroy it, not without cause. We are taken down to the planet itself, in the city of Dak, where we see one of the Empire's negotiators speaking to King Li Char. He speaks to him about giving the Empire their Kelpite strand beams for practically pennies.
Time for a little sexy time. You never know what you're gonna get. Looks like the gloves were on it. Oh my god, the same thing for me actually.
So, when do I get my own Padawan?
Ooh.
Always wanted to be a teacher.
It's true. I'm learning all kinds of things.
Oh, already
Helps
off
that you're an
rip
excellent
flirt, dude.
student, but that's not what I mean. Here, pretend you're my Padawan. Got a hypothetical moral dilemma for you. Say you could only save the Republic or the Jedi Order. Which would you choose and why? Don't think. Answer.
We're all that prevents the Sith from conquering the galaxy. Without us, there'd be no Republic.
Excellent answer, my Padawan. Have a sweet flat cake. See? I'd make a nifty master. Learn from the best after
A
all.
flat cake. Uh-huh. That's it? Okay, I was gonna say, no way. Last time was only one
Finally got the
dialogue.
skinny on how we become
I
an
have
official
it.
Jedi twosome. Short version, not happening.
Twosome? Oh.
We'd only ever see each other on Tython. Senior council members would review us monthly, make sure we stay detached. The clincher is, only Jedi who were raised by the Order from birth get permission. I'm automatically disqualified.
We can do what we want. We don't need permission.
Maybe not, but we might need a good alibi someday. Master Satele, smart lady. The longer we keep things going, the harder they'll be to stop. Not gonna ruin your life, tough guy. You want out of this? Just say so.
Oh, yeah? What do
I'd
you
rather
want?
face down the whole council than lose what we have.
For a man of action, got away with words.
Ah! Score. Score!
So much for upholding the Jedi Code. Guess we're outlaws.
We're outlaws.
We'll find a way to live with the guilt. Somehow.
Won't be easy, but we have to try, and try, and try.
Oh, 2 in a row. Let's go.
Nope, still feel guilty. You'll have to try harder next time. Better get back to saving the galaxy. Don't want people to think we've gone
Oh,
soft.
yeah? Detachment issues.
I'm with you to the end, but I hope it's a long ways
We've
off.
gone soft. We've gone soft.
All in favor of being protected by the Empire itself. When the king says protection for
Damn, does it
what?
work if you take
The
off all
galaxy
your
is at
clothes? That's
peace.
fucking
As Vader's
hilarious,
ship
dude.
flies by Tarkin in space, he grants it permission
We
to
just
proceed to
typed
the planet,
twice
telling
in
his
a
troops
row.
that
That's fucking
this ship
joke.
offers a different type of negotiation. As Radis and the king speak about the mysterious Jedi friend who is so focused on saving the galaxy, Vader and the Inquisitors
Korriban's flames. Oh my god, we're going to Korriban.
opening the door to see Commander Akbar. The infamous
That's
man
hilarious,
tells the
dude.
Inquisitors to halt as he is handed an official order with the Emperor's seal himself, instructing them that any interference with the Inquisitorius will be an act of war against the Empire. Clearly having an issue with the memo from the Emperor,
I wonder
Akbar
why
looks
we just did it
disgusted
twice,
as the Ninth
though.
Sister tells him to take it up with the boss. As he
Think
looks
about
to the
what happened in
ship,
the story?
and from the red smoke emerges the black figure of death.
Back to back?
Lord Vader has arrived.
Oh.
Now, this part of the comic is pretty cool in my opinion on Akbar's part. He full-on tells Vader to reveal his intentions before he lets him continue, first denying him and not bowing before him. As Vader yields and tells the commander that they are on the hunt for an enemy of the Empire, Akbar stands back in confusion, telling Lord Vader that no one here is an enemy of the Empire. When all of a sudden the Imperial shuttle bursts into flames as Vader and his crew continue to walk past Akbar and his awestruck men, saying,
Commander, you are
I said I could leave this to you.
As notice of things is brought to Tarkin's attention from above, he sternly looks to the planet and orders for military craft to land on the planet immediately at his orders. As we go to the final but most captivating part of the comic, a voice most likely that of the king is heard echoing to a mysterious Jedi Master in brown robes, telling him or her that the Empire has waged war and will be landing soon, and that Inquisitors along with another man is joining them. This one is tall, armored, masked, and dressed all in black. As he says,
admirable quality.
didn't get his name.
Don't waste
when
any
the
time.
Jedi Master tells
True,
him.
the other half didn't.
the elements of surprise.
You know, just typed twice.
Skywalker. Today's begins with Vader's men and the Empire annihilating the Mon Cala army after the Imperial ship was destroyed upon its return to Tarkin's starship orbiting above. As they clear the landing platform, Vader leads the king is still around.
No disrespect, Lord Vader, but that's assuming the king's even still up there. He probably evacuated the minute the Empire landed an entire battalion on this rock.
No, Tenth Brother. He remains. I am certain of it.
As Vader tells him that he is familiar with the king, we see him explain the next few things as we see what looks like some very familiar faces in the cameras. As the king reveals the battle above the second, we get deeper into the fantasy of the Dathomir One. We say, we realize that there are two other planets, and the first of them will shed no further blood at all. Above the planet, he commands the king to do all interaction. To stand down and intimidating the nation tells him that any invasion will breach of the planet, they will be forced to uphold aggressive defenses. Tarkin basically does what Tarkin does best here and ends the channel by commanding the king to stand down and ending the transmission. As we go to the mysterious Jedi Master, we see him sitting in the sky. Underneath his cloak, he's surrounded by its friends. When he looks at us observing Vader and slicing through the as he removes his weapon, he is revealed. Now, Master Bar seems to have and if incorrect, it seems to have a which can get annihilated in this scene. As he asks his boy to reject the file and assumed his second round in Order 66, up comes young Skywalker as he trains in the Jedi Temple as a young boy.
Skywalker was the greatest Jedi of his generation, accepted into the temple for training, and years later, I knew him, even spawned him times. He was magnificent. Some of the Jedi Council believed he was sent to bring balance to the Force, to end darkness once and for all. Even the great Obi-Wan Kenobi thought so. They were wrong. This is the Force. Most
Most of the files were erased, but I found a slice from the Corpusov backup archive. I've been studying the Purge, trying to understand how we could lose so completely, so quickly. I learned about Order 66, or deleted Dooku, just how deep it went. But still, we should have been able to foresee our doom. We were peering outward when we should have been looking at ourselves. At him! Palpatine's clones did their part, but the rest he killed, even the younglings. Stop, Kylo. He hunts the few survivors alongside his Inquisitors. More fallen Jedi traitors. Darkness was everywhere inside us, cancer, and we just couldn't see it. Skywalker's trail did not come without cost. His darkness inside. He calls himself Darth Vader, but the sins of him. It's a sin.
The Jedi must be avenged.
As easy as that. If it succeeds, Jedi will be avenged. The galaxy rid of Vader will spawn, and great steps taken
As Master Bar tells the king to trust his vision of evil at the end of the he agrees to the plan and ends transmission. As he looks behind him and sees Vader and the Inquisitors, when he's slammed against the stone wall by the dark side of the Force.
Ninth Sister,
Right on time.
do your work.
You're
As the
practically a
Ninth Sister
droid.
interrogates the king,
I knew if I applied the right stimulus, you couldn't resist
which
coming
seems
here.
like the same kind of
Something's
attack
wrong with
Kylo Ren
Leha.
uses on
She's
Kylo
not
Ren.
herself.
We
She
see
tricked
them
me.
all look up.
Joe
as
Ma
massive
was
waves
chasing
from the
proof he'd
whales
fallen to
create
the
a
dark
seismic
side.
tsunami.
He fell into
Vader
my
orders
trap
the
like a
Inquisitors
greedy
to plant
child.
the Force shield. When they can't
You
hold
were
it
just
off,
as easy.
he steps in and uses all of his rage to hold the wave back. But alas, it's far too big and heavy and engulfs the entire surface of the planet, Vader included, into the stormy seas and the abyss. As Tarkin informs the commander that Mon Cala hasn't been destroyed at all, as all of their infrastructure is below seas to begin with, he moves to ask whether any word from Lord Vader has been heard. As the Imperial tells him, he's not responding.
Emperor is dominating your mind. Resist him.
Please, don't hurt her. She doesn't know what she's doing.
Poor boy. You think you love me, but what we shared in secret on Tython was only a shadow of true passion.
They obviously weren't
As they
doing it
go
right.
toe-to-toe, Vader is
I'll show you true
squeezed by the
ecstasy,
alien
Joe
creature,
Ma.
and his lightsaber
But
falls
first
to the
things
floor of the ocean
first.
below. Raising his hand, coming eye to eye with the squid, he summons the dark side and sends a powerful
I don't want to hurt you. If you care about
killing him,
Jomar,
summoning his
surrender.
lightsaber to his grasp.
Surrender
As he
is for the
floats through
weak.
the ocean wreckage with his
Jomar
new kill,
had that
almost
option.
surfing on it underwater.
You don't.
He enters the Inquisitor's
You remember
shuttle
the
as he
meeting?
demands to know if the Jedi
I
is
gave
dead
my
or
little
not.
droid friends
As
a
the
few
Inquisitors say
upgrades I
that the
think you'll
Jedi is still
enjoy.
alive, but they know
Briefly.
his location. They basically continue to tell Vader that the bright side of the
Oh, I
story
didn't realize she
is
said
that
that. She
the
got turned into like a...
As the Inquisitors tell him that they know the location of the Jedi after torturing the King Vader condescendingly tells him that the first thing the King will do is tell the Jedi that the Empire is coming forward. As the creature floats through the ocean, Tarkin is then informed of an imminent attack on the Imperial ship down below. Just once again, awesome. As Commander Akbar leads the moment to fire all missiles. The king is brought back to the He is suddenly reminded of the Jedi's location, as the Mandalorians must tell him immediately. Sending King Lee Char tells him that no, he simply knows of their location, which you get out of him, and that they are probably headed there right now. The comic ends with dialogue of Tarkin telling his men that the situation is about to be escalated heavily, when you get a nice scene of 3 Star Destroyers hovering over the As Master Bar orders him to evacuate, they scramble in fear as to it's tough to command the Jedi hunters. The Inquisitors with Darth Vader. He sends his droid for self-destruction. He extracts the when but the Empire is attacking this world. We've been advising their king. Won't we do anything to help? We've done and if we're going to do it again, on as many other planets as we can, we need to learn to write them down, if it is not already too late. As they all jump into the whole into the ocean of Von Kala, when those visitors are truly English before them, scurrying out of the way, Vader clenches his fist and cracks one of the Bar's group. We get a flashback to one of the members' sisters as they are taken to become a Jedi. Then, later during the events of Order 66, she finds out that her sister is being hunted among all others by Palpatine, where Master Bar steps in and recruits her. We get another flashback of another crew member passing time as they finally get onto land, where once again another flashback takes place as we find out briefly how the next crew member was recruited by Bar. Now up above the planet, Tarkin basically admits that the Imperials are being slaughtered down below as their ships and men are at a disadvantage to the planet's water-preferred tactics. Signaling a transmission to Lord Vader, Tarkin says, Lord Vader,
it's been a long time since the Emperor defeated us.
I am aware. I request that you allow the rest of your team to locate and dispatch the Jedi.
No.
I have another task for you. Secure King
I don't want
Char.
to. I can feel the Emperor's presence.
No, hence the request as opposed to an order. But the Mon Calamari and Quarren forces are digging in for a protracted conflict, and our Emperor made it clear that he wanted a swift victory here.
Come
if
home to
I'm the
Tython.
king, I can end
Master
this.
Satil will
I
help
suspect you can acquire him faster
I have no right
than
to ask you
anyone
for
else.
anything,
Will you assist me?
The Council
I
doesn't
would
need to know
consider
about us.
it a personal
Please,
favor.
keep our
I
relationship
would
to
be
yourself.
in your debt.
Inquisitors,
I don't agree with the Council's ban on Jedi falling in love.
destroy the Jedi.
Understatement
Don't
of the
worry, Vader.
millennium.
We'll get him.
See
Understatement of the millennium. Oh
As
yeah.
Master Bar's two crew members come to a dead end, one
Like,
of the
literally
ships
acting like my girl, dude.
by the
So
Inquisitor's
overheard
lightsaber
Lee
using
Hunt
the
delivering
Force throw.
orders from the
When we get
Emperor
one
to a
more
high-ranking
flashback, but
Sith
this
Lord.
time it's a
I couldn't
Anakin
hear
Skywalker
details, but I know
saving a
someone named
civilian.
Lord
It was this
Fulminus went on
very
a secret
deed that
mission to the
made
planet
Bar's
Voss.
crew members so loyal
Just
to
what
the
we
Jedi
needed.
once Order 66
Better tell
took
Master
place.
Satil.
Ironic how
I'll take
Anakin
Lee
set
home.
that pride and care
Thank you for
only to be the
saving her.
one that was the
Us.
cause of the end of the Jedi as a whole. As Master Bar throws away his lightsaber, he names the Inquisitors one by one, telling them that he knows they are all Jedi back at the temple before the Purge. As the ninth sister steps up and tells him that it
Use
doesn't
my
matter,
ship's
that he's going to die
holocron.
anyways, and they know that he's just a Padawan too, Bar says,
Oh, the past does not die.
telling them that he has been studying the past while he's been hiding away from the Empire. As he flips off their helmets with the Force, he concurs that they are all young clones, just as he suspected, probably brought here after the Purge as expendable troops for this mission, or once like it. As he looks to the Inquisitors after they tell him that he's going to die regardless, he tells them,
Once a Jedi, always
Master
a
Satil,
Jedi.
I rescued Jomar and found Lee Hunt
Order
Arrest.
66.
She's been under the Emperor's control and needs your help. They're headed for Tython now. I also learned a high-ranking Sith named Fulminus is on the planet Voss.
when Bar executes Order 66 in the last episode to the batch of very young and fresh clones, the Inquisitors are fired upon by every clone before them as the 10th brother is brutally killed, just like Kiadi was.
Despite our best efforts, Voss's
Bar
government
tells them
rejects the
that clones
Jedi
must obey their program.
The Emperor has
no
always
better than
taken a great
droids,
interest
in a
in that
sense.
world.
As he leaps
I
over
thought
them
he
all
should
and
conquer
runs to the
but
exit of
clearly he
Verla,
intends
the remaining
destruction.
Inquisitors are busy
Go to
deflecting
Voss.
the on.
Find Lord Fulminus and stop his plans.
Execute Order 66.
We all know the most famous order of them all, Order 66, and how devastating that order was.
leaving thousands of Jedi to be hunted down and killed by the Empire. This was a terrible order, but in my opinion, there is one that is much worse, and I will be talking about that in this video. This order is of course Order 37.
This is Jomar Chul. I wanted to thank you again for saving Leha, and I appreciate you keeping our relationship to yourself.
So what was Order 37?
And helping her recover from what happened.
Order 37 is part of
It's slow
150
going, but
different
she's making
contingency
progress.
orders that
I'm
all
sorry I
clone
ever
troopers in
doubted
the
you.
Republic Army
Can't
are
judge him,
expected to follow.
because that's what I do too.
These
Get
orders
to
range
down.
from mild
Fuck
orders
it,
such
you'll
as
get
what to do
stitched,
in
but I'll
emergencies
also do
and
that.
what to do when your
So
squad
what?
leader is down.
If he stitches on me
They've
in
also
revenge,
contained some
I get
very
exposed to
dark and
council and I actually
disturbing
go to the
orders.
dark side.
The only example we've seen is Order 66, where it was ordered that all Jedi must be exterminated, as you all know. Another very dark and disturbing order was Order 37. I believe this order was much worse than Order 66. However, this order was very rarely ever used, as the Republic had no use for it. The one time the clones used this order is when Order 66 had already been executed. They used this order to try and extract all the Jedi by appealing to their conscience. They did this by rounding up all the civilians of a city, putting them in holding pens, and executing them if a Jedi did not reveal him or herself. Although this
We're in
order
orbit
was
around
only
Voss,
used
Master
once,
Satele.
it caused
Be wary
devastating
when you reach
effects.
the surface.
This explains
Voss is
why
a
so many
strange
Jedi
world
fled
under
to
the
planets
absolute
with less
control of a group
population.
of powerful Force
The
users
only
called the
time
Mystics.
Order 37
The Mystics
was being
reject
used
the
and
idea that the Force has
documented
both a
was right
light
after
and
Order
dark side.
66.
They claim to follow a neutral path,
The example
both in their
is
politics
a Jedi
and the
Padawan
Force.
known as Ferris Olin
Despite their
was a
claims, I
Padawan
think
who
the
left the
Mystics have
Republic
more in
after
common
feeling
with the
guilty
Sith
about one of his
than with
fellow
us.
Padawans' deaths on the battlefield. He later moved to a planet known as Balassa and started a business to help people escape the crumbling Republic and eventually the Empire. Right after Order 66 had been enacted, clones raided Balassa.
Are you saying the
During
Voss
the
are
raid,
servants of the dark
Order
side?
37 had
The
been
Mystics
enacted
use the
to all
visions given to
clones
them
on the
by the
planet.
Force to control the lives of
Clones then
ordinary
mass arrested the
citizens.
civilian
Like the
populace
Sith,
and used
they
brute
use
force
their
to
power
arrest
to
and put
dominate
them in
others.
holding
The
pens.
Mystics are prophets who shape the
The clone
direction of
stated
Voss
that if
society.
Ferris Olin was
The
not handed
Emperor
over
wants to wipe
Imperial
out all
authorities
life in the
within 24
galaxy.
hours,
Hardly
all
the same
civilians in
thing.
the capital city of
The dark
Usa
side
were
is
to be
subtle and
executed.
insidious, as you well
After
know.
sensing that even if
The
he were to
Emperor
give
did not
himself
begin
in,
his conquest of the
Palpatine would
galaxy
not
by
honor his
declaring
promise
his
by
true
letting the
intentions.
civilians go. As a result, he decided to escape the planet, and unfortunately
You
all
don't
the
sound
civilians
that
were
bad.
executed.
Oh, what's it called?
This now brings us to the question, why was Order 37 worse than Order 66?
What the fuck are these people again?
In my opinion, Order 37 was worse for multiple reasons. The first reason being that this was an order that millions of clones
Just because the
had
Mystics
followed.
don't follow the
This,
Jedi
of course,
code
means that if the power
doesn't
was
make them
abused,
evil.
then city after
Disapprove.
city
Don't let the
had
views of your
potential to be
companions
executed.
corrupt what the Order has taught you.
The second reason
A Jedi
being
does
amidst
not
the killings
compromise.
of mass
In any
populations,
case, the
therefore,
Mystics are not your
being able
primary
to cause
concern.
genocide if the
We haven't
personal
uncovered
charge
the
of
Emperor's
150
plan to destroy
contingency
Voss yet,
orders.
but he recently
Everybody
dispatched a Sith
disapprove.
Lord named
Lastly,
Fulminus
Order
to the
37
system.
has the ability to
Lord
extort
Fulminus
any
This is
created
how
the
you were
horrors you
rating
face
it.
in the
not
Emperor's
trained like a
fortress.
Jedi and can
Approval
feel
rating.
emotion.
Be wary.
Meaning that if a certain person wanted something from a certain faction, they could enact Order 37 and threaten to mass murder an entire population of the same species if they did not get what they want. If you're in Ferris
Give me his
Olin's
location,
situation,
and I'll take
you
care
need
of
to
this.
choose whether to
We know
trust the
Fulminus
Empire
is
or
somewhere on
just
Voss.
escape, knowing all the
He's
civilians
communicating
would
with the
die.
Emperor through an
Which
encrypted
would you
communications relay. We've detected
you a
several
fan
signal
of
scramblers
fucking battle
outside the planet's
meditation?
capital city of Voss Ka. Disable them, and we can track the comm signal to his location.
When you think of species in Star Wars that have a dark side to them, you probably don't think of Jawas. But if you think that means Jawas don't have a dark side, you'd be wrong. Jawas are ruthless little buggers, and they've got a dark history that most other species can't
ruthless
even
little
come close to
buggers.
matching. That's right, this video isn't clickbait at all. There is indeed a dark truth to the Jawas. Two of them, in fact.
If you act
In this
quickly, you should be
video,
able
we'll
to
be taking a
disable
look
all the
at both of
scramblers
them.
before Fulminus knows what's happening. Then we can find him. May the Force be with you.
Attention, Sergeant on deck!
A lot of the Jawas' dark side stems from their history, which is as good a place as any to start. The Jawas actually evolved fairly recently compared to many other species.
While the average major species in the Star Wars galaxy reached a recognizable evolutionary stage tens of thousands of years before the Republic was even an idea, the Republic actually predates the existence of the Jawas as a species. That's because the evolution of the Jawas was affected by outside forces, requiring drastic changes.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure the Jawas planet
Tatooine wasn't always a desert. As a Zerka Corporation starport officer once remarked to Revan, the planet was ancient compared to most, and 30,000 years before the events of the movies, the planet was lush and boasted an advanced civilization. Tatooine in those days was dominated by tropical climates, mostly warm oceans and low-lying forested islands. Long before most other worlds, the planet developed sentient life, a humanoid species known as the Kumamga. The Kumamga, by chance or perhaps by celestial design, resembled humans, and they built a great, technologically advanced civilization on Tatooine. They stripped much of their world, covering its continents with great metal cities that gleamed fiercely in the light of the planet's twin suns. Eventually, they developed spaceflight and set out to colonize the stars. This was against the wishes of the elders of their species, however, who warned that daring to touch the stars would bring doom to the whole planet. The elders of the Kumamga were right. Their fledgling spacefaring civilization attracted the attention of another, even older species, the Rakata of the Infinite Empire. The Rakata, as they did with all species that they encountered, enslaved the Kumamga, abducting their leaders and taking their strongest workers to be put to use making monuments across the galaxy. They stripped Tatooine of its technology, harvesting entire cities for scrap metal for use in their ever-expanding empire. This was near the end of the Infinite Empire's time, however, around a few hundred years before its collapse, and by this point it was already beginning to weaken. The Kumamga, like many species under the Infinite Empire's thrall at the time, sought to escape slavery at the hands of the Rakata. And so they rebelled, the first of many species to do so. The Kumamga set the machines they were made to work to destroy themselves, and those that were left on Tatooine fought back against the handful of Rakata that were stationed there and their battle droids. They drove the Rakata from Tatooine entirely, a victory that, a few thousand years earlier, would have been inconceivable. But unfortunately for the Kumamga, their victory didn't last long. Unlike the later rebellions, which took place on many worlds simultaneously, the Kumamga rebellion was the only major threat the Infinite Empire faced at the time, and so it was able to respond in force. The Rakata, unwilling to waste the resources needed to retake Tatooine, decided to glass the planet. As the Kumamga hid in deep caves, the Infinite Empire burned Tatooine into oblivion, boiling away its oceans and destroying all life on the surface, rendering the planet a glassy wasteland. The Rakata left Tatooine alone after that, and the Infinite Empire fell not long after. Over the course of the tens of thousands of years that followed, the glass left behind from the bombardment ground down into sand. The Tatooine we all know and love, a barren, unforgiving desert, was the result. And once this change had taken place, the Kumamga emerged from their caves, once more reclaiming the surface of their world. But the years in darkness had not been all that kind to them. Indeed, the Kumamga proper no longer existed. They had diverged into two different species. The Gorphers, who would later be known as the Sand People of the Tusken Raiders, were more akin to their ancient ancestors, but they had become primitive, superstitious, and warlike. The Jawas, on the other hand, had become smaller, weaker, and rat-like. Both species quickly worked out ways to deal with the heat of the desert. The Jawas began using hooded cloaks, which diffused heat from the suns and helped keep them cool, similar to the methods discovered by the Sand People. The Jawas only ever left their hands uncovered, at least while outside, and even their faces were shielded by black felt veils. They used colored gemstones set into those veils as primitive goggles to see through, which gave the appearance of glowing eyes beneath their hoods, usually yellow but occasionally red or orange. Their real eyes, for the record, were darker and, well, rat-like. But the dark side of the Jawas' history doesn't end there. Despite their common heritage, the Jawas clashed with the Tuskens from the start. Resources on Tatooine were now scarce, and neither species believed the planet could sustain both of them. The Jawas, however, were unable to really do anything about their Tusken enemies, the ones they called the Ghosts of the Sand. The Tuskens enslaved the Jawas whenever they could find them, and the first few thousand years after their re-emergence were rather miserable for the Jawas. Around 5000 BBY, change came to Tatooine once more. There was a great space battle above the planet, fought between unknown belligerents, and the clash rained hunks of metal down into the sands. In this, the Jawas saw their chance. They scavenged what fell from orbit and adapted the technology that survived to suit their needs, attempting to get an advantage over the Tuskens. They were only moderately successful until, for the first time in tens of thousands of years, outsiders set foot on Tatooine once more. In the time of the Old Republic, Tatooine was considered more or less cursed. Geological surveys often indicated the planet was rich in metals, but these surveys were often off, and what metal any miners found was always flawed. For some cause or another, the metal found on Tatooine was all corrupted. It corroded extremely quickly and was virtually useless as a result. Tatooine was settled, abandoned, and resettled many times over the course of centuries, with some colonists even settling on the exact same spots. Anchorhead, for example, was settled at least 3 times. Each time Tatooine received colonists, the Jawas saw a glimpse of hope. Each time, they reached out to the outsiders and trained with them, seeking to acquire their technology to use against the Tuskens. This was rather difficult. The Jawas communicated with each other through a mixture of sound and scent, and they had to adapt their language to be able to communicate with others. Even then, their trade language was notoriously difficult to understand even for words. Some Jawas even sought to make the colonists their allies. Unlike the Jawas, the Sand People detested the outsiders, especially humans, who they believed resembled their ancient abductor. The outsiders reminded the Sand People of the crimes they held against their ancestors to have committed against the planet, and the way the miners ripped up the desert made them even angrier. The Sand People went to war against any colonists that arrived, harassing their mining convoys and stealing their weapons for use against them. The Jawas helped the colonists against the Sand People as best they could, but they were usually out of luck whenever the colonists abandoned the planet. The most significant addition to Jawa culture came when Circa Corporation claimed Tatooine during the Jedi Civil War. Circa sought to strip mine the entire planet, and to do so, they brought in sandcrawlers, massive mining machines that tore up swaths of the desert looking for metal. The Sand People attacked the sandcrawlers constantly, slaughtering their crews and leaving them damaged and burning out in the Dune Sea. When Zerka eventually left the planet, they didn't take many of those sandcrawlers with them. They left them to rot in the desert, thinking nothing of it. But where Zerka saw a wasted investment, the Jawas saw salvation. They laid claim to the sandcrawlers and they effectively rebuilt their entire culture around them. Their sandcrawlers became moving fortresses, homes in which they could be safe from the Tusken Raiders. When permanent settlements were finally founded on Tatooine years later, the Jawas gave the sandcrawlers another purpose as well. Their habit of scavenging technology suddenly had become profitable, and so they began using the sandcrawlers as mobile workshops, collecting and repairing scrap they found in the desert to trade to settlers with. But there's another dark truth to the Jawas outside of their history. You see, the Jawas eventually came to depend on their junk trade, and as the years wore on and times got better for them, they began to get bolder. By the time of the Galactic Civil War, it wasn't at all unheard for Jawas to outright steal droids or other important equipment from moisture farmers or other settlers and then sell them back at inflated prices. If something wasn't under immediate guard, the Jawas considered it liable to be claimed. If something was under immediate guard, the Jawas would still occasionally consider it liable to be claimed, one way or another. So that's the dark truth about the Jawas, who you might have seen more recently in The Mandalorian, which we highly recommend. But as per usual, what do you think? Are there any other species you'd like to see us cover like this next? Make sure you let us know in the comments section below. And just before you go guys, there's a whole bunch of links in the description below waiting for your clicks. So if you want to join the wider Geeksleys community on our Geeksleys Gaming Network, where we have our Clone Wars and Imperial server and our Dark RP server coming up, or our Roblox server where you can play Clone Wars as well, then make sure you check out those links below. And if you also want to chat with other Star Wars fans, then we also have our main Geeksleys Discord where you can do just that. Anyways guys, as always, thank you so much for watching and I hope to see you in the next video.
Damn, she didn't talk to me. Listen.
Among Star Wars fans, Ki-Adi-Mundi is largely known for his sizable head, his role as the leader of the Galactic Marines, and his concern about the droid attack on the Wookiees. But there was more to his character than being a meme. As a matter of fact, Ki-Adi-Mundi was actually a pretty terrible guy, the embodiment of all the flaws of the Jedi, and above all, an utterly heartless man. In this video, we're going to look into why all my homies hate Ki-Adi-Mundi, and why he damn well deserved to get shot in the back. This video is brought to you by Surfshark. Surfshark is without a doubt the best VPN to keep you secure on the web. The reality is that these days we're spending a lot more time indoors and online, and for better or worse, the world is moving in that direction. This is why it's so important to encrypt your data, and Surfshark should be your go-to. Some of the many benefits include it being compatible with all platforms and on unlimited devices, meaning you can protect everything. No other VPN does this, by the way. Let's not forget that Surfshark also protects from those targeted ads that creep you out, and at the same time lets you search for better Black Friday deals from different locations. And of course, everyone's favorite feature of VPN, watching Netflix from different countries. So if you're looking for a VPN with 24/7 customer support, a 30-day money-back guarantee, and strictly no logs, meaning no one, including Surfshark, can know what you're doing online, then make sure you click the link in the description below to secure yourself Surfshark's exclusive Black Friday 4-month free deal. Ki-Adi-Mundi was one of the first prequel-era Jedi that we, as fans, were introduced to. The very first, actually, as he appeared in the December 1998 comic Prelude to the Rebellion, the first issue of what would later be renamed Star Wars Republic. He's a very well-known character, but despite his infamy, many don't know a lot about who he was. We get very little about him in the films, and aside from landing up—
What the fuck is Order 65?
If cannibalism is only acceptable in a life-threatening situation. Hi friends, welcome back to another episode of Generation Tech. My name is Alan. Last episode we talked about how inhibitor chips work. Today we're going to talk about what would have happened had Order 65 been carried out instead of Order 66. So what is Order 65? Well, it's kind of the opposite of Order 66. Order 66 is Kung Pao chicken with a side of white rice and a spring roll. Order 65 is Kung Pao chicken with brown rice and the side of hot and sour soup. Alright, I got that joke out of my system. Order 65 states, in the event either the majority of the Senate or the Security Council declares the Supreme Chancellor unfit to issue orders, GAR commanders will be authorized to detain the Supreme Chancellor with lethal force if necessary, and command of the GAR shall fall to the acting Chancellor until a successor is appointed or alternative authority is identified. So how would we get to Order 65? Well, we have to go to the incident of Fives, the clone trooper who figured out that clones from a very early—
I don't think it was this one.
In the duel in the Senate chambers, Yoda fell a great height and landed on the floor. Though he had been disarmed, he had not been killed, and very much still could have gotten up and continued the fight against Sidious. He had gone in with the singular goal of destroying the Sith, and yet he himself said that he had failed. So rather than find his lightsaber and resume the fight for the soul of the galaxy, Yoda fled. In the duel, Yoda had been given an epiphany, one that is laid out in great detail in the Revenge of the Sith novel. It was in this moment when Yoda pierced through the very veil of the dark side and saw the truth of what was occurring. He had absolutely no hope of victory, and it wasn't a matter of skill, but a matter of destiny. In that moment, the Force had one message for the Grand Master. That message was run. Greetings, Acolytes, and welcome back to the Archives. In today's Holocron, we are going to explore the real reason why Yoda decided to flee from Sidious, rather than get back up and finish the duel. In this process, we will discover the deep meaning behind the will of the Force during the galaxy's darkest hour, and how Yoda finally pierced the veil. The duel between Yoda and Sidious was so much more than a fight with a lightsaber or a show of Force mastery. it was two avatars of their respective alignments clashing in their greatest deathmatch in galactic history. It was all the power and the soul of the Jedi battling the spirit of the Sith. Two embodiments of their respective orders giving it their all in one climactic showdown that has been 1,000 years in the making. At least, that is how Yoda saw it when he first walked into Palpatine's office. Before his realization, upon learning that Palpatine was the Sith, and that he had turned the Chosen One and become the Emperor, Yoda told Obi-Wan one thing: destroy the Sith we must. As far as they were aware, they were the last of the Jedi. While many Jedi did survive Order 66, or completely out of commission, Obi-Wan had already sent out a message warning all surviving Jedi to stay away from Coruscant, and Yoda didn't know if he and Obi-Wan were the last two Jedi alive in the entire galaxy. But nevertheless, the point was the same. No one responded to their call, so the Jedi were on their own. The heart of the Republic was theirs to defend, and they needed to act quickly. Obi-Wan would face his own pupil and defeat him, a task that Yoda was confident Kenobi could handle. But the mission that laid before the Grand Master would place the weight of the entire galaxy's future upon his small shoulders. Yoda was the only one that was remotely powerful enough to face Sidious. There was no time to debate it. Yoda needed to take him alone. The Grand Master, not yet willing to call himself the former Grand Master, walked with great confidence and bravado into Palpatine's office. But the Sith Lord quickly showed him that his arrogance did indeed blind him. This was something that Yoda too had realized midway through the Clone Wars. He had begun to see what Qui-Gon Jinn had said, that the Jedi had been correct about the state of the galaxy, the Jedi, and the Republic. The Jedi had neglected the will of the living force. They had become far too dogmatic, blindly serving a system that was fundamentally flawed, unstable. All Yoda wanted to do was end the Clone Wars as quickly as possible, and hope to repair the Jedi Order after. He was far too late for both of this though, and his training with the Force and the priestesses had shown him something clear. Yoda had developed his own attachment. Yoda's was the Jedi Order. He lost everyone that he cared about, all the little Jedi that he had considered to be his own children. But due to him overcoming this fear at the wellspring of life, Yoda was able to steel his resolve, and he chose to fight Sidious with the light side of the Force and the determination of a Jedi Grand Master. He would not be swayed by tragedy. He would remain serving the part of the Force that had always given him victory, and he believed that it would repeat itself again. But Sidious would prove to be a kind of challenge that he had never encountered before. Each blow from the Dark Lord made Yoda's old body creak in pain. The dark side was more overwhelming than it had ever been before. He had managed to disarm the Emperor, but he soon found himself facing a storm of dark side fury, equivalent to the force of nature itself. Yoda was indeed powerful, and yes, he continued trying his best and hardest to have a chance to overcome the Emperor, but to defeat Palpatine here was not the will of the Force. Over the course of the duel, Yoda sank more and more deeply into the light, and finally, he had a breakthrough. Not a breakthrough in the battle where he managed to get an advantage over the enemy, but rather a breakthrough in his mind, and a breakthrough of the veil that had been laid over the Force. The machinations of Darth Plagueis and Darth Sidious that had clouded the Jedi for years at this point. Yoda finally broke free, and Yoda finally saw the truth. But it was not some grand realization of power, insight, and salvation. It was worse. There came a turning point in the clash of light against the dark. It did not come from a flash of lightning or slash of an energy blade, though there were these in plenty. It did not come from a flying kick or a surgically precise punch, though those too were traded. It came as the battle shifted from the holding office to the Great Chancellor's podium. It came as the hydraulic lift beneath the podium raised it on its tower of Durasteel 100 meters and more. It became as a laser point of battle flaring at the focus of the vast emptiness of the Senate arena. It came as the Force and the podium's controls ripped delegation pods free of the curving walls and made use of them as hammers, as battering rams, catapult stones, crashing and crushing against each other in a rolling thunderbolt that echoed the Senate's cheers for the galaxy's new Emperor. It came when the Avatar of the Light resolved into the lineage of the Jedi, when the lineage of the Jedi refined into one single Jedi. It came when Yoda found himself alone against the dark. In that lightning-speared tornado of feet and fists and blades and bashing machines, Yoda's vision finally pierced the darkness that had clouded the Force. Finally, Yoda saw the truth. This truth, that he, the Avatar of the Light, the Supreme Master of the Jedi Order, the fiercest, most implacable, most devastatingly powerful foe the darkness had ever known, just didn't have it. He'd never had it. He had lost before it had ever started. He had lost before he was born. The Sith had changed.
Oh
The Sith
my
had grown.
God.
They'd
Come over here,
adapted,
Kara.
invested 1,000 years intensive study into every aspect of not only the Force, but Jedi lore itself, in preparation for exactly this day. The Sith had remade themselves.
Kara.
They had become new, while the Jedi had spent the same millennium training to refight the last war. The new Sith could not be destroyed with a lightsaber. They could not be burned away by any torch of the Force. The brighter his light, the darker their shadow. How could one win a war against the dark when the war itself had become the dark's own weapon? He knew at that instant that this insight held the hope of the galaxy. But if Yoda fell here, that hope would die with him. Yoda thought. A problem this is. In this operatic description of their duel, Yoda's vision at last pierces the veil of the dark, the same veil that is the one that Sidious threw over the side of the Jedi as early as Attack of the Clones. The Jedi Council came to realize that most of them were unable to see the future anymore. Even Mace Windu's Shatterpoint ability was now limited. This was a power which allowed him to perceive fault lines within a moment in time. This meant that he was able to sense when people, places, or even events had important turning points in history. Mace could trace a single fracture of time to its source, and determine that something or someone would alter time forever. This ability extended to perceiving weak points in structures, or even an enemy's fighting style. But with the veil of the dark side over his vision, Windu had a difficult time perceiving exactly what the Shatterpoints were telling him. He still perceived them, but their meanings were vague and misty. But Windu at least had more than most Jedi. The dark side began to cloud everything to the point where Jedi seers were basically useless, and not even Yoda could look into the future to determine whether a situation spelled fortune or doom. As the war progressed, it got to the point where only those who submitted themselves to the dark side could pierce this veil. Pong Krell perceived that a new order was coming to the galaxy, and he wanted to be a part of it. Maul saw the same thing closer to the end of the war, and even figured out that Anakin Skywalker was the key. Yoda was shown what he needed to overcome on Dagobah, at the Wellspring of Life, two locations which rested a powerful vergence in the Force. Yoda did not believe the future was set in stone, but he believed this was an omen of warning, now hoping that he could change the Jedi to resist the dark side, rather than looking for the dark side within the Republic. How could one win a war against the dark when the war itself had become the dark's weapon? The answer is the exact answer that Yoda comes to stop fighting. What the Force was trying to show him is that Yoda no longer had destiny to swing a lightsaber, to conquer the dark side by defeating Sidious here. He got back up, and he was sent falling a long way, but his body ached. His stamina passed its limits, and he realized that the Sith had truly won. But Yoda makes a decision. Yoda puts aside the Jedi dogma that he said would destroy the Sith, but it could also destroy the Jedi. He laid down the arrogance that the Jedi could protect the Republic. He put it all aside, and he listened to Qui-Gon. He listened to the Force. And the Force told him that his role was not to be a general or a warrior. He fought a good fight, but he must fight no longer. Yoda needed to flee, not out of fear, but because he had the knowledge and hope of the future, a hope that would not allow him to selfishly die. Yes, when he speaks to Bail, he must go into exile and that he had failed, but I don't believe that he's saying that he failed to kill Palpatine, or even failed to protect the Republic. Yoda failed because he He failed because he allowed the dogma and superiority of the Jedi to blind his sight, and by continuing to fight, he had become the very weapon of the Sith. Yoda would need to go into exile and wait for a new hope, and when that happened, he would listen to the will of the Force again and would train him. When Luke arrived, Yoda tested him by being intentionally irritating, and when he saw the boy's lack of patience, Yoda became afraid. He saw a lot of Anakin and Luke, but he was reminded by Obi-Wan of the promise that he made to vow to never fail to listen to the Force again, a promise he made to the Force. This is why he didn't return to lead the rebellion, or have a rematch with Sidious. It's exactly what Palpatine would expect from him. Simply
Vanguard action
couldn't possibly win this way. That line of thought needed to die, and it was time to be a mentor, a guiding hand, rather than a warrior. Yoda perfectly characterizes this shift in thought when he tells Luke, "War does not make one great." And so, my friends, that is why Yoda ran away from Sidious. After we did a full breakdown of this duel a while back, there were many who said that Yoda definitely could have gotten back up and should have been able to defeat Palpatine, but whether or not this is true, this isn't ultimately the point. Maybe he could have gotten back up, but his power and his lightsaber would have only played into Sidious's game, his weapon, and even if Yoda won, the soul of the Jedi had been eradicated. The galaxy turned against them. Their time was over. Even if Sidious and Vader both perished, it did not change the fact that the light had almost completely been stamped out, and that the galaxy hated the Jedi. It was a time of patience, peace, healing, realignment with the will of the living Force. This was the message that the Force finally delivered to Yoda, to run, not out of cowardice, but out of hope. But anyway, my friends, thank you so much for visiting the channel and the archives here today, and I too hope that you are having a phenomenal day. May the Force be with you.
In recent years, Star Wars fans have been lucky enough to get a whole host of new Star Wars content covering the period between the declaration of a new order and the declaration of the New Republic. Many animated series and live-action shows have all taken place during this period, filling in the gaps between Episode 3 and Episode 4. However, as many of you know, with the acquisition of Lucasfilm, we've seen a line drawn between canon and Legends, two timelines that differ wildly between themselves. Most modern media adds on to the canon timeline, but in many ways, Legends has always been the more epic of the two. That's why in this series, we'll be covering a less popular topic, at least as far as our viewership is concerned, as seen through Legends, the Galactic Civil War. We've spoken at length about how canon and Legends Luke Skywalker differed, and how their paths after the Rebellion split dramatically, but this sort of divergence began long before the Battle of Endor. From the very beginning, canon and Legends differ in the most fundamental ways, and in this series, we'll be taking a detailed look at the major conflicts that marked the Galactic Civil War in Legends, from the birth of the Rebel Alliance all the way to its triumphant victory.
Currently open for business. Have a safe and pleasant stay.
Attention, Sergeant on deck!
Like with any good story, we have to begin at the very beginning. After the fall of the Republic, there had been many isolated
not every story begins at the beginning. I mean, look at Naruto. Naruto begins kind of like a quarter into the story.
And all of
I'd probably say halfway through the story.
But isolated incidents do not a civil war make. All these conflicts were part of a
being born, I'd say, is probably like
galactic
a halfway mark
dissatisfaction
in
with
everything that
Palpatine's
happens.
totalitarian regime, but they weren't part of a greater movement. A true civil war requires an organized rebel front, and that didn't form officially until 2 BBY. For 17 years, senators like Bail Organa and Mon Mothma had lain in wait, plotting and planning. They attempted to use politics and diplomacy to curb the atrocities of the Empire, all while putting together their allies and forces. They had identified that the Empire Palpatine had created was irreversibly corrupt and a grotesque mockery of democracy, and so they vowed to bring it down and restore the Republic. Thus, in 2 BBY, 3 senators gathered on Corellia, brought together by a mysterious Force user known as Stoic. The first was Garmbel Iblis of Corellia, who consolidated all rebel forces on the planet under one banner. The other 2 were Bail Organa of Alderaan and Mon Mothma of Chandrila, 2 of the leading figures of anti-imperial sentiment in the Senate. The 3 met on Corellia to continue their discussions on potential revolt, accompanied by a former Jedi general and several rebel units. The talks that took place became known as the Corellian System meetings, during which the rebellion's leaders drafted the Corellian Treaty, a codification of their ideals and goals. By signing the treaty, the senators unified their individual rebel selves into one cohesive rebellion with united goals, a formalized front, and clear hierarchy. However, what the rebels didn't know was that Starkiller, born Galen Marek, was secretly the Sith apprentice of Darth Vader. The entire meeting had been a trap, orchestrated by Emperor Palpatine to gather all his enemies in one place so that they could be disposed of and made an example of. Marek, meanwhile, believed that he and his master, Darth Vader, were using Palpatine's plan against him. The moment the Emperor was distracted by a unified front of insurrectionists, they would strike him down and take his place. Unfortunately for Marek, he had been lied to. No sooner had the three senators signed the Corellian Treaty than Imperial forces flooded the meeting chambers, dispatching their guards effortlessly. Rahm Kota, the Jedi, drew his saber in preparation to defend the rebel leaders, but he was deterred from acting when Darth Vader himself strode in and confronted his apprentice, who felt betrayed once he realized he had been used. The plan had never been to dethrone Palpatine, but to gather the rebels and execute all of them. A duel broke out between Vader and his former apprentice. The droid Proxy briefly interfered, but Vader was too powerful to be reckoned with. He easily overpowered Marek, throwing him first out of the meeting chamber, then off the snowy cliff. Believing him dead, the Imperial forces took the senators and Jedi Kota prisoners, bringing them on board the still incomplete Death Star, where Palpatine awaited them. Palpatine declared they would be interrogated, tortured, then executed. Of course, the story didn't just end there. If it had, the rebellion would have never truly happened. Marek had survived. Not only that, but his master's betrayal had been enough to tip him over the edge onto the side of the rebellion. Up until then, Marek had been on the fence, but now he was out for Sith blood. Ambushing an Imperial patrol carrying Wookiee slaves, he used the shuttle to infiltrate the Death Star and, with the slaves free and wreaking havoc, he made his way through the waves of stormtroopers and into the Imperial throne room. Along the way, he faced countless soldiers armed with blaster rifles and laser cannons, but none were enough to deter him. Just before Marek barged into the throne room, Palpatine had been informing his prisoners that they would be tortured and interrogated for more information on other rebel cells before finally being executed for treason. When Marek interrupted him, he immediately saw Palpatine for who he was. Not the frail Emperor, but a powerful Dark Lord. Irritated by the interruption, Palpatine ordered Vader to kill his apprentice. The duel in the throne room between master and apprentice was fierce, but brief. Despite Vader's overwhelming superiority with the lightsaber, Marek was skilled in more subtle ways of fighting, like telekinesis. As they fought, Marek couldn't help but feel awed at his master's strength. He realized he didn't hate him. Having let go of his connection with the dark side, he vowed to free Vader from its grip by taking his life and returning him to the Force. The duel was grueling, but over time, Marek gained the advantage, looking for a single opening. When Vader stumbled, encumbered by his armor and prosthetics, Marek struck. One successful blow led to another, until Vader lay on the floor of the throne room, alive, but critically wounded. It was then that Palpatine reached out with the Force, attempting to influence him into ending Vader's life and taking his place at the Emperor's side. Luckily for Marek, however, Rahm Kota refused to allow the Emperor to lure him back to the dark side. In a burst of energy, he used the Force to steal the Emperor's lightsaber and rushed him, cutting down several guards in his attempt to cut Sidious down with his own weapon. Sidious fought back by unleashing a wave of Sith lightning at the Jedi. Marek, however, interposed himself between them, absorbing the lightning and locking Palpatine and himself into an endless loop of lightning. While the senators were evacuated onto Marek's starship, the Rogue Shadow, Marek held the Emperor in place. Once they had left, he allowed the built-up energy to explode out of himself, killing everyone but Vader and Sidious. It cost him his life, but it bought the lives of the rebel leaders, who were taken by Juno Eclipse, Marek's pilot, to Kashyyyk. There, the rebel leaders formally declared the birth of the Alliance to restore the Republic, plunging the galaxy into a new civil war. Darth Sidious was left furious, as a trap that had been intended to decapitate the snake of the rebellion only resulted in them being inspired by Marek's sacrifice to take his empire down. Not only that, but Marek's final play had caused significant damage to the Death Star, delaying its deployment for another 2 years. But for the time being, the Galactic Civil War had officially begun, and its first battle had already resulted in a rebel victory. During its first year of life, the Rebel Alliance spent most of its efforts in gathering its strength, organizing once scattered rebel cells, and structuring its hierarchy and armed forces. However, that doesn't mean they sat idly by and waited for the Empire to muster its own forces and hunt them down. Alongside its efforts to solidify their presence, the Alliance also executed sabotage runs to loot valuable resources or undermine Imperial operations. One such run resulted in the Alliance's first open battles with the Galactic Empire. Somewhere between 2 and 1 BBY, the Rebel Alliance gathered intelligence that Grand Moff Wilhoth Tarkin and Bevel Lemelisk were en route to the Death Star. Tarkin was, of course, one of the most powerful men in the Empire, both from a political and military standpoint. A former Republic admiral, he had openly embraced the Galactic Empire and its change in regime, and was the driving force behind many of the doctrine changes in the new Imperial military. Tarkin held many problematic beliefs he had been unable to fully express while the Republic was in power, and now that the Empire had done away with many of the Republic's qualms and morals, he had been unleashed upon the galaxy. We won't go into too much nauseating detail here, but if you want a more detailed explanation of Tarkin's humanocentric and fascist drivel, we have a video dedicated to the different ideologies of this time period, including that of the Empire. In an effort to combat what he saw as trans-sector criminal and rebel activities, Tarkin had proposed several system overhauls, many of which the Empire had labelled a success. Gradually, he had risen through the ranks until he obtained the title of Grand Moff and was given the reins to several keystone projects. One of these was the creation of the Death Star itself, which Tarkin believed would be enough of a fear deterrent to keep the galaxy's citizens in line. The man accompanying him on that Lambda-class shuttle, Bevel Lemelisk, wasn't much better. An engineer and architect by trade, he was the mastermind behind the Death Star's design. Earlier in his career, he had worked for the Galactic Republic, studying under other famous scientists such as Nazra Margrady and working with other renowned architects such as Dr. Walex Blissex. Together with the latter, he designed the Victory 1 class Star Destroyer, which had been a game changer during the Clone Wars and would remain in use in naval armadas for decades to come. After the fall of the Republic, Tarkin had brought him onto the Death Star project to engineer a battle station that could literally destroy entire worlds. At this point in time, Lemelisk had designed the Death Star prototype and the first Death Star, but later on, he'd be responsible for 4 more superweapons. All too aware of the Death Star's terrifying potential, when the Alliance received intelligence that the 2 masterminds behind the battle station project were together on a single shuttle heading toward the Death Star, they knew they had to seize the opportunity to take them out, hopefully preventing the station from ever being completed. Thus, they launched an operation to intercept the Lambda-class shuttle the 2 were on before it rendezvoused with the Nebulon B frigate Vehemence in the Eriadu system. Now, as much as we enjoy pointing out every time the Empire was overconfident or complacent in their plans, comfortable in their military superiority, they weren't completely incompetent. The Imperial military had managed to secure its hold over the galaxy without stumbling despite many localized conflicts. Tarkin especially was no fool, which was part of why he was such a danger. Imperial Command was all too aware that transporting the 2 men behind the Death Star project on the same shuttle was a huge security risk, so they had taken precautions to prevent Tarkin from being taken in the event of an ambush. In total, 6 Lambda-class shuttles set off from Eriadu toward the Death Star, with Tarkin and Lemelisk riding in one of them. Tarkin's shuttle and the 4 decoys were accompanied by 6 TIE fighters. That might sound like insufficient protection, and it was, by Tarkin's design. The Grand Moff believed that a larger protection detail would have drawn significantly more attention to what would otherwise have seemed as a minor personnel or cargo transport heading to the battle station. Less attention on their convoy meant less chance of a dedicated attempt to take them down, and it also meant less attention on the Death Star's real location. The 5 shuttles left Eriadu's governor's palace with their attachment of TIE fighters heading through the sector. The shuttle Tarkin and Lemelisk were on had the codename Epsilon 5. Coincidentally perhaps, it was piloted by none other than Jial Akbar himself, a Mon Calamari that had seen plenty of action already. Akbar had started his career on Mon Cala, where he was the commanding officer in the Mon Calamari Guard. During the Battle of Mon Cala in the Clone Wars, he had participated in the battle assuring Prince Li Char's ascension to the throne. After the Clone Wars, Mon Cala was enslaved by the Galactic Empire, and Akbar found himself a slave to Wilhoth Tarkin. As the Imperial shuttles and TIEs approached the Vehemence, a small rebel assault team exited hyperspace and launched a surprise attack. The rebel force was made up of 3 BLT Y-Wing starfighters piloted by Red Squadron and several X-Wings. The latter wasted no time after entering the system before they engaged the TIEs, destroying them and creating space for the Y-Wings to shoot through and open fire on the Imperial shuttles. Face to face with the incoming starfighters, Tarkin ordered Akbar to take evasive action. Instead of obeying the Grand Moff, Ackbar deactivated the shuttle's shields, fully intending on allowing the rebels to destroy the shuttle. While it meant his certain death, it also meant the death of Tarkin, and to the Mon Cala, that was a sacrifice worth making. Red Squadron was able to identify their shuttle and, after determining that Tarkin had to be on board, they shot at the shuttle, destroying its rear and sending it veering off course. Ackbar gleefully informed Tarkin he was taking him down as payback for every ounce of suffering the Moff had inflicted on himself and his people, but Tarkin wasn't deterred. The Grand Moff and Lemelisk boarded an escape pod, leaving Ackbar to his likely doom. Although the escape pod was built for a single occupant, resulting in both Tarkin and Lemelisk suffering minor injuries, they successfully launched off into space, from where they sent out a distress signal. Meanwhile, Red Squadron continued firing on Epsilon 5 until it had been disabled. Once the frontal assault team had determined all shuttles had been disabled, a Lambda-class shuttle, Hasty, entered the system, transporting a commando unit on board and 2 Y-wing starfighters from Blue Squadron. The Vehemence had attempted to aid the transport shuttles, sending out 9 additional TIEs, but the rebel starfighters from both Red and Blue Squadron made easy work of them, providing cover for Hasty to approach Epsilon 5 and dock with it, allowing the commandos to board the shuttle. Aboard Epsilon 5, they learned that Tarkin and Lemelisk had escaped, but they found Ackbar alive. Meanwhile, Tarkin and Lemelisk watched the battle unfold as their escape pod traveled ever farther away. Tarkin was surprised that the Rebel Alliance would bother to rescue Ackbar, whom he considered a worthless alien, but it wouldn't take long for the Grand Moff to be proven critically wrong in his evaluation. Before the rebels could veer off and pursue Tarkin's escape pod, Imperial Admiral Conan Antonio Motti arrived in his flagship despite Tarkin not having requested his aid for the mission. The Admiral's Star Destroyer opened fire on the rebels, which forced them to scatter and abandon pursuit of Tarkin's escape pod. With Ackbar safely removed from the Epsilon 5, the rebels destroyed the shutter entirely before fleeing to hyperspace. Tarkin and Lemelisk were rescued by the Admiral, and the two continued on their way to the Death Star. Despite their failure to capture Tarkin, the mission was far from a failure for the Rebel Alliance.
Since like 6
Having
in the
been at
morning,
Tarkin's side as his slave, Ackbar had a wealth of knowledge and information about the Death Star, which would prove invaluable moving forward. After Ackbar was liberated, he was allowed to return to his home planet, where he resumed his duties as Admiral of the Mon Cala fleet. This was particularly important because, up to this point, the Mon Cala had been hesitant to join the side of the Alliance. Like many other planetary resistance groups like Ryloth, they'd been hesitant to join the Greater Alliance, focusing instead on their efforts to liberate their homeworld. Ackbar's return to his people served as a glowing recommendation of the Alliance, and it was his support and approval that eventually led the Mon Cala to pledge their support and fleet to the Alliance. But the events of the capture-turned-rescue mission didn't end there. Ackbar wasn't just instrumental in gaining the support of the
In the duel in the Senate chambers, Yoda fell a great height and landed on the floor. Though he had been disarmed, he had not been killed, and very much still could have gotten up and continued the fight against Sidious. He had gone in. Most would agree that Star Wars is a medium that is best experienced on the big screen with as big an audience as possible. It was a story that was made to be watched and experienced, not simply read and imagined. However, there are some instances where the words of the novel carries the weight of certain moments with more distinguishment than in the film. In these very rare instances where the books are better than the movies, it makes us sorely wish that those scenes had been altered to deliver the full impact of the perspective, given the gravity of the situation that they deserve.
Oh yeah, you probably came in when I just left for work, dude. Like, I literally left for work around like 6 in the morning or something.
The Revenge of the Sith film and the novel are similar, but there are several.
Yeah, if you guys ever come into the stream like early in the morning, I'm either sleeping or at
it's
work.
actually a lot different in the book. What's interesting also is George Lucas.
I'm just like running King of the Hill.
Lucas appreciated the novel for delivering all the content that had to be cut from
Which
the
sucks
original
because
screenplay.
John Redcorn
But what
recently
we appreciate
died,
in the
the
channel
actor.
is how well the
John
novel
Redcorn.
conveys the crushing gravity of the Jedi Order's worst fears coming to pass. And in today's Holocron, we are going to compare the scene of the film with its novel counterpart, and give our opinion on why we think the book is actually way better. Afterwards, though, we want to hear whether or not you agree, and what version you think should be the official one in canon. So now, let's begin. This is a different kind of video for us, but we're excited. The importance of this scene cannot be understated. Anakin has just discovered that the man he has trusted his entire life, his father figure, his mentor, is the Sith Lord behind everything.
Most of the time I just forget to end the stream.
he has decided to do the Jedi thing, the right thing.
I
He
just
turns
leave it
over his
on.
friend to the council because he knows this is what a Jedi would do, but he is still reeling from the information, and Anakin has not processed or even accepted it. For Windu, though, he would have just heard that the Sith Lord had been the leader of the Republic for the last 10 years. This means that the Jedi have been answering to the Sith this entire time, doing his bidding, and that their greatest enemy has control of the beloved Republic that Mace Windu loves more than anything. Mace Windu has sat in the same room as this man countless times. His incredibly perceptive ability of Shatterpoint never once picked up that Palpatine was a being of darkness, a being that could rival Yoda. And this creature has not only been ruling the Republic right under the Jedi's nose, but he has now engineered the entire war from the beginning. All of this weight and more is falling upon Mace Windu in this single moment. So how would this interaction reasonably play out? In the two are walking and having a chat in the temple hangar bay. Anakin delivers this news gravely, but maintains a stoic, if not perturbed demeanor. Windu breaks his Jedi composure for a brief moment due to his shock, but after receiving the news, he simply asks Anakin if he is sure, and then says that their worst fears have been realized.
Obelisk.
Anakin wants to come with Mace Windu, but Mace tells him to stay at the temple, not trusting Anakin due to the amount of confusion that he senses within him. Mace, though, then promptly enters the Republic shuttle and departs to arrest the Chancellor. In our mind, the scene serves its purpose, but it does little else. Windu and the Jedi needed to be given the information that Palpatine was Sidious, and once they got it, they rushed off immediately to arrest him, moving Anakin's story forward. If one had no context of the events surrounding this moment, and was not aware of the alternate scene in the novel though, then there would be no issues with how this plays out. But when we are aware of these things in great detail, it is hard to feel as though the film delivers this moment with sufficient emphasis. The Jedi didn't believe that Sidious ever existed for a very long time, not until the tail end of the war, and towards the beginning of the war, they simply believed that Dooku had lied to Obi-Wan. They assumed that the Tyrannus that they had heard of from Jango Fett was the real master behind the war, that Tyrannus was the main Sith. That was until all the way until 19 BBY, when they discovered that Dooku and Tyrannus were the same. This, along with other factors they noticed, opened up investigation back into Sidious. Eventually, the Jedi traced Sidious to Coruscant and realized that he could actually be within the Senate. The Jedi theorized that he was puppeteering Palpatine directly as the war continued. However, they were always 2 steps behind. In the novel, Obi-Wan is actually deeply disturbed by Mace Windu. Windu seems to be slipping due to his paranoia. He has become radicalized, arguing with even Yoda, and insisting that the Jedi need to take over the office of the Chancellor. Windu knows that a Sith Lord is all around them, but he cannot pin him down, and the investigation is blatantly driving him insane, and the rest of the Jedi are beginning to tell. Anakin himself has been extremely sleep-deprived from the entire time he's been on Coruscant. The nightmares of Padme are causing him to avoid sleeping altogether. This, coupled with the disappointment of not being awarded the rank of Master despite being a hero of the war, the Council making him a spy of his father figure, and the guilt that he has carried over beheading Dooku. All of this is explored extensively in the book, showing that Anakin isn't himself, and he is suffering greatly inside. But when Palpatine reveals that he is a Sith Lord, it's all too much for a young Anakin to bear. He buckles under the weight of it all, and he finally reaches his breaking point. We will now read the entire scene from start to finish directly from the book, so that you can feel the impact of the way that he did, and the way that we did experiencing Windu and Anakin's emotions. As a brief aside, we've slightly edited this passage for the sake of clarity. Mace lowered his head, and stood in the darkness and the silence. The door of the comm center shot open, spilling yellow glare into the room, and lining the silhouette of a man half collapsed against the frame. Master, the voice was a hoarse half-whisper. Master Windu. Skywalker. Mace was at his side in an instant. What's wrong? Are you hurt? Anakin took Mace's arm in a grip of desperate strength, and used it like a crutch to haul himself upright. Obi-Wan, he said faintly. I need to talk to Obi-Wan. Mace responds. Obi-Wan is operational on Utapau. He has destroyed General Grievous. We are leaving now to tell the Chancellor, and to see to it that he steps down as he has promised. Steps down. Anakin's voice had a sharply bitter edge to it. You have no idea. Listen to me. You have to listen to me. Anakin sagged against him, shaking now. Windu wrapped his arms around the young Jedi and guided him into the nearest chair. You can't, please. Master Windu, give me your word. Promise me it'll be an arrest. Promise me you're not going to hurt him. Mace then says this. Skywalker, Anakin, you must try to answer. Have you been attacked? Are you injured? You have to tell me what's wrong. Anakin collapsed forward, face into his hands. Mace reached into the Force, opening the eye of his special gift of perception. But what he found there froze his blood. The tangled web of fault lines in the Force that he had seen connecting Anakin to Obi-Wan and to Palpatine was now no more. In their place was a single spider knot that sang with enough power to crack an entire planet. To crack Coruscant. Anakin no longer had shatter points. Anakin was a shatter point. The shatter point. Everything depended on him. Everything, Mace said slowly, with the same sort of deliberance that he would care when examining an unknown type of bomb, one that may have the power to destroy the universe itself. Anakin, look at me. Skywalker raised his head, and Mace frowned. Anakin's eyes were raw and red. His face looked swollen, and for a long time, he didn't know if Anakin would answer, if he even could answer, if he could even speak at all. All the young Jedi seemed to be doing was struggling with something deep inside himself, as though he fought desperately against the birth of a monster hatching within his chest. But in the Force, there was no as though, there was no seem to be. In the Force, Mace Windu could feel the monster inside Anakin Skywalker, a real monster, too real. One that was eating him alive from the inside out. Fear. This was the wound that Anakin had taken. This was the hurt that had him shaking and stammering, too weak to stand. Some black fear had hatched like fever wasp inside of the young knight's brain, and it was now killing him. Finally, after what seemed like forever, Anakin opened his blood-raw eyes. Master Windu, he spoke softly. He spoke painfully as though each word ripped away a raw hunk of his own flesh. I have bad news. Mace stared at him. Bad news, he repeated blankly. What news could be bad enough to make a Jedi like Anakin Skywalker collapse like this? What news could make Anakin Skywalker look like the stars had all gone out? Then, in 9 simple words, Anakin told him, this is the moment that defines Mace Windu. Not his countless victories in battle, nor the numberless battles his diplomacy has avoided, not his penetrating intellect, not his talents in the Force, or his unmatched skills with the lightsaber, not Windu's dedication to the Jedi, or his devotion to the Republic that he serves, but this, right here, right now, because Mace too has an attachment. Mace has a secret love. Mace Windu loves the Republic. Many of his students quote to the students of their own, the Jedi do not fight for peace. This is only a slogan, and is as misleading as many slogans can be. The Jedi fight for civilization, because civilization creates peace. For Mace Windu, for all of Windu's life, for all of the lives of the thousands of years of the Jedi before him, true civilization has only ever had one name, the Republic. Windu has given his life in the service of his love. He has taken lives in the service of his love, and lost the lives of innocents. He has seen beings that he cares for maimed, killed, and sometimes worse. Sometimes so broken by the horror of the struggle that their only answer was to commit horrors greater still. And all because of that, all of that love now here, in this instant, Anakin Skywalker has 9 words for him that shred his heart, burn it to pieces, and then fed him its smoking ashes. Palpatine is Sidious. The Chancellor is a Sith Lord. Windu doesn't even hear the words. Not really. Their true meaning is too large for his mind to gather in all at once. They mean that all he has done, and that all that has been done to him, that all the Order has accomplished, all that the Order has suffered,
Commander,
all that the galaxy itself has gone through, all the years of suffering and slaughter, the death of entire planets, this has all been for nothing. Because it was all done to save the Republic, which was already gone, which had already fallen, the corpse of which had been defended only by a Jedi Order that was now under the command of a Dark Lord of the Sith. Mace Windu's entire existence had become crystal, so shot through with the flaws that the moment of those 9 words had crushed him to sand. But because he is Mace Windu, he takes this blow without a change of expression. Because he is Mace Windu, within a second the man of sand is stone once more. Pure Jedi Master, weighing coldly the risk of facing the last Dark Lord of the Sith without the Chosen One, against the risk of facing the last Dark Lord of the Sith with the Chosen One, eaten alive by fear. And because he is Mace Windu, the choice is no choice at all. Anakin, wait in the council chamber until we get back. Anakin responds, what, Master? That's an order, Anakin. But the Chancellor, Anakin says desperately, clutching at the Jedi Master's hand. what are you going to do? And it is the true measure of Mace Windu that even now, he is still telling the truth when he says this. Only as much as I have to. The novelization delivers the galaxy-rupturing truth with an impact that completely blows the scene in the film out of the water. Now, obviously, there are a lot of things in the book that couldn't really be translated to the film. This helps the book out a lot, such as how Mace Windu sees Anakin in the Force, his own internal monologue that he has about himself. But there was a way to convey the character's reaction and the states of mind in a different way. Having Anakin approach Windu with the exact sort of look he had immediately after betraying him would be a start. Glistening with a panicking sweat, unable to stand on his own, barely getting out the words between breaths. In the book, you also see how Mace Windu genuinely cares for Anakin. All their squabbles aside, Windu is genuinely concerned for him, and he even begins to sense the growing presence of Darth Vader within Anakin. Born from an overwhelming amount of fear, it becomes palpable. I love that. The way that the novel says that he speaks to Anakin as though he's defusing a bomb is a perfect way to characterize why Mace Windu did not take the Chosen One with him. It was more than a lack of trust, it was a concern over his well-being, perhaps even his life. If Anakin was shown looking like this in the film, it would make a lot more sense why Windu commanded him to remain in the council chambers. Now, our feelings aside, there was one camp that may say that their composure in the film makes sense because they are Jedi, and are taught to restrain their emotions completely. This is obviously true. Anakin managing to deliver the news the way he did in the hangar shows that he is in a state of denial. The real weight of it all doesn't truly hit him until he's alone in the council chambers. Windu remains stoic, because even as the novel points out, he is shattered and then reformed into rock within less than a second. He pushes away the gravity of it all for the sake of his own sanity and the sake of the mission. Windu's strength is that he is action-minded, and he can act without being controlled by feelings. This is reflected in the very nature of Vaapad. He thinks logically, critically, discerning through the Force all of the confusion and fear within Anakin. And of course, facing down the Dark Lord of the Sith would require only the most disciplined of Jedi. We may even say that the true weight of the situation doesn't hit Windu himself until after he is Palpatine at blade point. The moment he decides that Sidious is too dangerous to be left alive, the moment that he must be killed. This decision made against the Jedi way because the reality of it all was now hitting him. Palpatine has control of the Senate and the courts, and not only that, but Windu has just felt the depths of his darkness during their duel, spraying Force lightning everywhere that nearly murdered them all. Furthermore, he realized that Sidious has a grip on the Chosen One. If the Sith had influence over Anakin, he was truly too dangerous to be left alive. So in defense of the film version, the realization scene was kept to a minimum so that the true impact would arrive during the climax and the confrontation with Sidious. But I also love that the novel at the same time has given us this interaction. It was a moment that Anakin buckled under the pressure. The moment Mace Windu dropped his composure and realized that the war had been a lie. This would lead directly into Anakin's desperation and joining the dark side. It would have shown why Windu had been so hasty in his judgments. And for us, the version of the reveal and Mace Windu's reaction is superior to that in the movie. One of the rare moments. But what do you think, guys? What camp do you belong to? Should the drama have been emphasized to show the depths of the character's feelings? Or it's no secret at all that there was a lot of cut content from the Revenge of the Sith film. One of the most notorious is the cut sequence from Palpatine in his duel with the 4 Jedi Masters. But another duel that also got the short end of the stick, as impressive as it was Anakin and Obi-Wan's duel with Dooku on the Invisible Hand. It could have been so much more. But luckily for us, almost everything that was left out of the filming was included in the Revenge of the Sith novelization. Sometime back we talked about one scene from the film that was done way better in the book, and in today's Holocron, we return yet again to the pages of the novel in order to compare the scenes. This time, however, it's not about dialogue or emotion, but about a fight. Typically, lightsaber duels are visual spectacles that must be seen to be experienced, but we firmly believe that it was the novel that did the most justice to the final confrontation between Anakin Skywalker and Darth Tyrannus. The exploration of this is much, much deeper than it is in the book, and much more happens right here in the archives that we won't want you to miss out. Infinite knowledge awaits you, so crush that subscribe button and become an acolyte today. Now, my friend, let's begin. The best part about the films is getting to experience Star Wars the way that it was meant to be experienced, through dazzling sights and sounds that carry you to a galaxy far, far away. But the best part about the novels is getting to look inside the minds of these characters. Their thoughts and perspectives often reveal hidden information, and the duel at the beginning of the story is so very different. What isn't seen on film is just how many layers there are to this fight. The novel tells us the whole fight from Dooku's perspective, and all of the horrifying discoveries that he makes during it. It begins with Anakin and Obi-Wan expertly fooling the Count through body language, and it ends with the Sith Lord seeing just how far Anakin has come, enough to surpass even a Dark Lord of the Sith. One thing that is worth noting before we get into this, however, is that the novel was written roughly the same year as the movie, which is 2005. This means that the writer, Matthew Stover, was working off of the continuity that only existed in the films and the 2003 Clone Wars animated series. The reason that we bring this up is because there is a lot of insinuation that Dooku hasn't fought either of these Jedi since Geonosis, but of course we know that from the 2008 series that they have met a couple times since then in canon. But for the purposes of this video, we will be keeping closely to what the novel reveals to us, exploring what Legends continuity looked like around this time. Anyway, the scene is constructed as Dooku and Palpatine finish up a conversation. Sidious explains that he wants Dooku to kill Obi-Wan and to bring Anakin to the dark side. But then, Dooku is told that he must allow himself to lose and be captured by Skywalker. Palpatine would later give him a pardon as the Chancellor, but before all of this, Dooku does attempt to bargain for Obi-Wan's life, not wishing to kill him as his metaphorical grandson. But Palpatine is having none of this. Sidious knows that Obi-Wan is one of the last things anchoring Anakin to the Jedi way, and removing him from the picture was paramount. Eventually, Dooku concedes, though his pride is displeased at having to surrender to the boy that he considers unworthy to even be called a Jedi in Anakin. However, the novel describes that Dooku is tired of the war at this point, having to orchestrate all of these schemes. The book even says that he is feeling every hour of his 83 years, and that he's ready to end this silly charade. Finally, they sense that the two Jedi are on their way, and Dooku goes to take position, ready to give Anakin his shining victory. However, the Count is not ready for what is about to truly take place. Once the Jedi arrive and check in on the Chancellor, Dooku makes his grand entrance, flanked by two B-2 super battle droids. It is here that the Sith Lord seeks deeply into the dark side, perceiving the world around him differently. And this is where we get a look into the book of what it's like with Dooku and how he sees everyone in the realm of the Force. Kenobi was luminous, a transparent being, a window onto a sunlit meadow of the Force. Skywalker was a storm cloud, flickering with dangerous lightning, building the rotation that threatens to turn into a tornado. And then there was Palpatine, of course. He was beyond power. He showed nothing of what may be within him. Though seen with the eyes of the dark side itself, Palpatine was an event horizon. Beneath his entirely ordinary surface was absolute perfect nothingness. Darkness beyond darkness.
Force levitating that guy.
Force. And he played his helpless hostage role perfectly. There's an extended scene of dialogue between the three of them as they verbally fence about the state of the war, and Dooku takes the opportunity to goad Skywalker once more. Obi-Wan assumes the open-informed position of Form 4 Ataru, the form of Yoda and Qui-Gon Jinn, a form that Dooku knows extremely well. This has been the same lightsaber form Kenobi used against him on Geonosis. Anakin opens into a High Guard Form 5 Xi'an. Again, the same form that he utilized before on the Desert World. They had all been dismantled by Dooku, who was able to exploit the fact with Anakin that Xi'an was not particularly suited for saber-to-saber combat. It was especially weak against Makashi, which was suited for this exact task. Within his mind, Tyrannus knew that the plan was simple: isolate Skywalker, slaughter Obi-Wan. He was so confident about his plan and it all taking place that he was almost bored of having to execute it, believing that his victory was assured. The fight begins with Dooku effortlessly fending both of the Jedi off, as they both attempt to attack him at the same time. They are uncoordinated, sloppy, very easily dealt with. At one point, Dooku sends Anakin to the floor, throwing chairs from the situation table at him. He then sends him crashing through a wall by throwing the table itself, all the while holding off Kenobi with one hand. The Sith Lord is already in the process of separating the Jedi, of killing Obi-Wan, but they're making it easy for him now, so much so that he finds the whole process to be less of a duel and more of a comedy. The novel tells us this. They were certainly energetic enough, leaping and whirling, raining blows at random, cutting chairs to pieces, and using the Force to hurl them in every conceivable direction, all while Dooku continued, all of his gracious, to the way, to outmaneuver them so thoroughly, it was all he could do to keep from laughing out loud. It was a simple matter of countering their tactics, which were depressingly straightforward. Anakin was the swift one, whooshing here and there in a spastic knockback way, attempting a Jedi variant of the Neek in the middle, so that they could come at him from both sides, while Obi-Wan came in a measured way using spiritual cadence, deliberate, and lumberjoy-like, moving step by step, cutting off the angles, clumsy, but relentlessly dogged as he attempted to drive Dooku into the corner, whereas all Dooku needed to do was slip from one side to the other, occasionally there, fighting each of them in turn, rather than both of them at the same time. For Dooku, it was amusingly easy to keep the Jedi tripping and stumbling so that they would always be in each other's way. He played their styles against each other and positioned so that they used teamwork as an obstacle. It was all so simple that Dooku was frustrated, insulted that he would have to inevitably fake losing against Skywalker. In Dooku's mind, Tyrannus mentions how elementary it was, how he could cut them down easily, but this is what the novel reads. Only one death was in his plan, and this dumb show was becoming tiresome. Not to mention Tyrant, the dark power that served him went only so far, and he was, after all, not a young man. Dooku then enters a saber lock with Kenobi, which brings them close, and he tells the Jedi Master that his moves are far too slow, and that he must do better, repeating the same sentiment that he had for Obi-Wan on Geonosis. But for long-time viewers of the channel, we know exactly what's about to happen. This is the moment when Dooku has the rug pulled out from under him, the moment he realized that he had been completely played for a fool. We're going to read the novel and let it speak for itself. Kenobi's response to this friendly word was to regard him with a twinkle of gentle amusement in his eyes. Very well then, the Jedi said, and shot straight upward over Dooku's head so fast that it seemed to vanish. And in the space where Kenobi's chest had been, there was now only the blue lighting of Skywalker's blade driving straight for Dooku's heart. Only a desperate whirl to one side made what would have been a smoking hole in his chest into just a line of scorch through his armory cloak. Dooku thought, what? He threw himself spinning up and away from the two Jedi to land on the situation table, disengaging for a moment to recover his composure. That had been entirely too close, but by the time his boots touched down, Kenobi was there to meet him, his blade now weaving through a defensive velocity so bewilderingly fast that Dooku dared not even attempt to strike. He threw a feint towards Kenobi's face, then he dropped and spun in a reverse ankle sweep, but not only did Kenobi easily overleap the attack, Dooku nearly lost his foot to a slash from Skywalker. Skywalker, who had again come out of nowhere, and now carved through the table so that it collapsed under Dooku's weight.
Oh,
Skyfucker! And dumped the Sith Lord unceremoniously to the floor. This was not in the plan. Skywalker slammed his following strike down so hard that the shock of deflecting it buckled Dooku's elbows. Dooku threw himself into a back roll that brought him to his feet, and Kenobi's blade was there to meet his neck. Only a desperate whirling slash block coupled with a wheel kick caught Kenobi on the thigh, brought him enough time to leap away. But when Dooku touched down, Skywalker was already dead.
I'm not fighting.
The first overhand chop of Skywalker's blade slid off of Dooku's instinctive guard. The second bent Dooku's wrist. The third flash of blue forced Dooku's scarlet blade so far into the inside that his own saber scorched his shoulder, and Dooku was forced to give ground. Dooku felt himself blanch. Where had all of this come from? Skywalker came on, mechanically, inexorable, impossibly powerful, a destroyer droid with a lightsaber. Each step a blow, each blow a step. Dooku backed away as fast as he dared. Skywalker stayed right on top of him. Dooku's breath went short and hard. He no longer attempted to block Skywalker's strikes, but only to guide them slanting away. He could not meet Skywalker's strength to strength. Not only did the boy wield tremendous reserves of force energy, but his sheer physical power was astonishing. And only then did Dooku understand that he had been suckered. Skywalker's Shien-ready stance had been a ruse, as had his Ataru gymnastics. The boy was a Gemso stylist, and as fine of one as Dooku had ever seen. His own elegant Makashi simply did not generate the kinetic power to meet Gemso head to head.
I'm so happy it's not like World of Warcraft where like if you know, you get a hit,
it was time to alter his own tactics. He dropped low and spun into another reverse ankle sweep. The weakness of Gemso was its true lack of mobility. That slapped Skywalker's boot sharply enough to throw the young Jedi off balance, giving Dooku the opportunity to leap away. Only now, he found himself again facing the wheel of blue lighting that was Kenobi's lightsaber. Dooku decided that the comedy had now ended. Now it was time to kill. Kenobi's master had been Qui-Gon Jinn, Dooku's own Padawan, Dooku had fenced Qui-Gon Jinn thousands of times, and he knew every weakness of the Utaru form. With its ridiculous acrobatics, Dooku drove a series of flashing thrusts towards Kenobi's legs to draw the Jedi Master into a flipping overhead maneuver so that Dooku could burn through his spine from his kidneys to his shoulder blades. And this image, this plan, it was so clear in Dooku's mind that he almost failed to notice that Kenobi met every one of his thrusts without so much as moving his feet, staying perfectly centered, perfectly balanced, blade never moving more than a millimeter more than was necessary, deflecting without effort, riposting with flickering strikes, and stabs swifter than the tongue of a Geroldian ghost viper. And when Dooku felt Skywalker regain his feet and stride once more towards his back, he finally registered the source of that blinding defensive velocity, registering what Kenobi had done only a moment ago. And then, belatedly, did he understand that Kenobi's Utaru and Shi-Cho had been ploys as well. Kenobi had become a master of Surisu. Dooku found himself having a sudden, unexpected, overpowering, and entirely distressing bad feeling about all of this. In the novel, the winds of change hit the invisible hand harder than a Republic turbo laser ever could. The tables turned so sharply that it gave Dooku whiplash. The beginning of the fight had indeed been a comedy, but the object of ridicule had actually been Dooku this whole time, not the Jedi. They faked their forms, and they made themselves look clumsy, inept, hiding the fact that they had become the most dangerous duelists in the galaxy during the 3 years of the Clone Wars. Obi-Wan's defensive power was so refined and so sharp that even Dooku's Makashi could not penetrate it. And Anakin's offensive might had become so potent that Dooku was having a hard time keeping himself steady. Just moments ago, he had been complaining about how Anakin was a stupid boy that didn't deserve to be even called a Jedi. He couldn't understand Sidious's interest in him, only noting that Skywalker had a lot of anger and a high midichlorian count. Beyond this though, Dooku despised and greatly underestimated Anakin at every single turn. But now, he's one of the single finest blade masters of the era. He had just labeled Anakin a master of Gemso, a master as fine as he has ever seen.
Oh, a master of Gemso.
Bending his wrist back, causing him to injure himself with his own lightsaber. The plan was to isolate Anakin and to kill Obi-Wan. Dooku had fixated on this plan so confidently and so arrogantly that he thought it was a simple matter. He toyed with the Jedi to stoke his own ego, to cover up the fact that he was about to fake losing. But now he wasn't faking anymore. Dooku found himself actually fighting for his life. In the face of Obi-Wan's impenetrable defenses and Skywalker's unrelenting attacks, the plan was not possible. Tyrannus is in actual real danger here, and recognizes that the men that he had moments ago considered clowns are about to kill him. Finally, he draws heavily upon the dark side and unleashes a wave of energy to smash through Obi-Wan's defenses, to hurl him across the room. But he didn't have time to enjoy it, as Anakin was all over him like an animal. This is what the novel reads. The shining blue lightsaber whirled and spat, and every overhand chop crashed against Dooku's defense with the unstoppable power of a meteor strike. The Sith Lord had to spend lavishly on his force reserves merely to meet these attacks without being cut in half. And Skywalker was still getting stronger. Each parry cost Dooku more power than he'd used to throw Kenobi across the room. Each block aged him a decade. He decided to invest in strategy once again. He no longer even attempted to strike back. Force exhaustion began to close down his perceptions, drawing his consciousness back down to the physical form, trapping him within his own skull, his own mind. All until he could barely feel the contours of the room around him. He dimly sensed stairs at his back, stairs that led to the entrance balcony. He quickly retreated above them, using the higher ground for leverage. But Skywalker just kept coming, tirelessly, ferocious. That blue blade was everywhere, flashing, whirling faster and faster until Dooku saw the room through an electric haze. And now Kenobi was back in the picture. In this moment, Dooku was prematurely experiencing what Obi-Wan would later have to deal with on Mustafar. Anakin no longer not like Gemso. Once he gains momentum, Anakin begins to absolutely bulldoze his enemy with powerful strikes. But what's crazy about Anakin is instead of wearing him down, he gets faster, stronger, more aggressive. The longer that Anakin fights, the more power he ramps up rather than cooling down. And it was so bad that Dooku's perceptions were closing down around him. He was forced to anchor himself in the fight against Anakin just to stay alive. He wasn't able to use his senses to his advantage as efficiently, and with Obi-Wan back on his feet, Dooku orders his battle droids to slow him down. Finally, we get to the moment when Tyrannus is able to gain footing again. He folds Anakin in half with his strongest kick possible and sends Kenobi reeling with a forced push. This is where he drops the alloy and the permacrete walkway on top of Obi-Wan, hoping that this would finally keep him down. What the novel doesn't say, though, is what we in the archives have often theorized, is that this was Dooku actually having mercy on Obi-Wan. He had always thought that the Jedi Master was a much better candidate for the Sith than Anakin was, and he was baffled at the idea of killing Obi-Wan and letting all of his talents go to waste. Not to mention, this was the last vestige of Qui-Gon Jinn, the only last real piece of Qui-Gon Jinn in the galaxy as far as Dooku knows, and so once he lifted Obi-Wan in the air, he very well could have just run him through with the lightsaber. Instead, though, he had mercy and disabled him rather than killing him. However, the action heavily displeased Sidious, who ordered Dooku to end his life there. But Dooku had absolutely no time to think about this, or to even savor the moment of defeating Kenobi. As soon as Dooku turned around, his entire vision was obstructed by a boot, one coming directly for his face at something resembling terminal velocity. He'd flip over the railing only just barely to land on his feet, as he attempted to put back his front of superiority, but that had all failed. He knew it was no longer true. Anakin had grown far beyond Dooku had thought possible. Anakin jumps down to join him on the floor, and this is what the novel tells us happens next. Skywalker leapt from the balcony. Even as the boy hurled downward, Dooku felt a new twist in the currents of the Force between them, and he finally understood. He understood how Skywalker was getting stronger, why he no longer spoke, how he had become a machine of battle. He understood why Sidious had been so interested in the boy for so long. Skywalker was a natural. There was a thermonuclear furnace where his heart should be, and it was burning through the firewalls of all of his Jedi training. He held the Force in the clench of a white-hot fist. He was half Sith already, and he didn't even know it. The boy had the gift of fury, and even now, he was holding himself back. Even now, as he landed at Dooku's flank and rained blows upon the Sith Lord's defenses, even as he drove Dooku backward step after step, Dooku could feel how Skywalker kept his fury based behind walls of will. Walls that were hardened by some uncontrollable dread Dooku surmised to himself of what might happen if he should ever allow that furnace he used for a heart to go supercritical. The realization hit Dooku that Anakin's natural affinity towards the dark side had been the very reason that he was desired so desperately by Sidious. And now that Obi-Wan was gone, Tyrannus could finally focus on the plan that the two Sith had concocted. It was time now to bring Anakin to the dark side, and so Dooku begins goading him, speaking about how he had hate and anger, but he didn't use it. He prodded at him, stating that he was simply afraid of the dark side, calling him a liar that he was the hero with no fear. It's at this point that Palpatine speaks from the chair, telling Anakin to use his anger to kill the Sith. Dooku is astounded by this, wondering whose side Palpatine is actually on, and finally, Anakin understands. He knows that he is the only thing standing between death and the two men that he cares about the most, and he drives Dooku back even more. The Sith Lord's death was so assured, everything that happened before was a simple performance. The novel tells us that Dooku's years of training, political acumen, and even his power in the Force was nothing but a joke in the face of Skywalker's power. And finally, Anakin decides that he should end it by taking the arm that Dooku took from him, but doubled the repayment. He slips his guard, and with a smooth slice, off come the tools of Dooku's greatest pride, his hands. No longer did he hold his lightsaber, the very thing that gave him such recognition. Now, it was Anakin's hand, crossed over his throat like scissors. In the film, George Lucas originally wanted Dooku to beg for his life. This was actually in the script, but Sir Christopher Lee believed that it was unbecoming of the character, who would be so shocked at not only losing his hands, but at Palpatine's betrayal, that he would not utter a word. Stunned and in silence, he would not break his elegant demeanor, but more so beg for mercy simply by meeting Anakin's eyes with his own. But in the novel, Matthew Stover decided to go with George's vision, and he allowed Dooku to beg. His courage and refinement now a bitter memory as the Count shrivels into a helpless victim. This was a whole twist of irony. Dooku is reduced to the position that many of his own victims have been before his very blade. But now it's his turn. The only thing that makes Anakin hesitate is his years of Jedi training. But the words that Palpatine says next, the two simple words, unlocks him. Do it was not actually a command, it was permission.
Do it.
And in his last moments, Dooku realized that everything that he had been, all his accomplishments, all his power, were for naught. Dooku had been a tool, just as everything else had been to Palpatine. Treachery was the way of the Sith, and he'd been played for a fool by Sidious. He would be Anakin's first victim, but certainly not his last. And then, the Count, Darth Tyrannus, was finally no more. This was the novelization of the duel on the Invisible Hand. The fight was much longer and more intricately detailed in the book. The setup and the execution of a master plan by Obi-Wan and Anakin is also pulled off with a lot of drama, especially seeing it from the mind of Dooku. Showing the reactions of both combatants, it would be difficult to translate on film. Dooku's defeat is a lot more sudden on screen, a quick advantage that Anakin takes. But in the book, Dooku's decline was slower, more painful, and his death was something that was telegraphed as being inevitable. I would say that the biggest change between the novel and the film was not only the dialogue and the choreography, but also the final moments of Dooku's life. And this is where we want to put a vote in the comments. Which version do you personally prefer? Do you like Christopher Lee's suggestion that it was unbecoming of his elegance to beg for his life? Or do you think it would have been a satisfying end to see Dooku reduced from an arrogant Sith Lord to a sniveling, desperate old man? Thank you guys so much for joining us today in the archives, as we've been excited to explore all of the different facets of Revenge of the Sith, from book to screen. Not to mention, the novel of the Duel on the Invisible Hand is something that we reference quite a bit at the archives, and we believe a full breakdown and explanation has been long overdue. But as always, we hopefully will see you in the next one, my friends, and may the Force be with you.
We know great depth of emotion.
Instead on their efforts to liberate their homeworld. Akbar's return to his people served as a glowing recommendation of the Alliance, and it was his support and approval that eventually led the Mon Cala to pledge their support and fleet to the Alliance. But the events of the capture-turned-rescue mission didn't end there. Akbar wasn't just instrumental in gaining the support of the Mon Cala. His tactical genius and talents proved critical to the Rebel Alliance, which he served as an admiral with high distinction during the Galactic Civil War. At the end of the day, the Alliance may have failed to apprehend Tarkin, but the intelligence, support, and talent they gained in return made the rescue of Akbar one of the most pivotal early successes of the Alliance. The third significant conflict we'll be taking a look at today took place in 1 BBY, when Starkiller stepped in to rescue Jedi Ram Koda from a deadly arena on Cato Neimoidia. But let's back up for a moment. You'll remember Ram Koda from the Battle of Death Star 1, when he and 3 senators were captured by Darth Vader while they were signing the Corellian Treaty. After Galen Marek's sacrifice and their escape from the incomplete battle station, Ram Koda had remained in service to the Rebel Alliance, commanding a unit of troops and launching various missions on behalf of the Alliance. That said, he had gained a reputation for himself of someone unreliable. This was because, for the most part, he tended to act without authorization from higher-ranking members of the Alliance, instead choosing where and when he would act and taking his squad with him as if they were acting alone. Kota, as you might be able to tell, was a bit of a rebel, and on one occasion in 1 BBY, his independence really came back to bite him. In 1 BBY, Kota led a team of his men on an unsanctioned raid to Cato Neimoidia, which took a quick turn for the worst. Kota's squad were all killed, and the Jedi himself was captured by Baron Marillion Tarko, appointed governor of Cato Neimoidia.
I already know Kira is high.
Now, the governor was certainly a character. Hailing from the core world of Anaxis, Tarko had attended the Anaxis Citadel in his youth, graduated with the highest honors, and found his way into the Republic military. During the Clone Wars, he was assigned to a Republic flagship, and by the end of the war, he was on the fast track to power, through means less than savory if we had to guess. When the Republic fell and the Empire took its place, Tarko's political and military career only blossomed. Thanks to Tarkin's commendation, Tarko was promoted to the rank of Moff and given command of the Imperial operations on Cato Neimoidia. He renamed its main bridge city Tarko Say after himself and established a power hub he built up with casinos and a successful slave trade. Once his power base was thriving and his pockets were heavier than they had ever been before, Tarko even opened a for-profit gladiatorial arena. Kota's mission to Cato Neimoidia had been to assassinate Tarko while his team reconnoitered the planet.
Keep wondering what
When they failed, the Jedi was taken prisoner and thrown into the gladiatorial arena, where he was forced to fight for a week straight. Although the Jedi was able to keep fighting off the monsters the Imperial Baron kept throwing at him, it's unlikely he would have survived much longer if Starkiller hadn't swooped in to rescue him.
We could stay busy
Now,
the rest
we
of our
hear you.
lives.
Didn't we make a rather big
No
deal about
victory
Galen
over the
Marek
Sith
sacrificing himself
everlasts.
on board
We
the
wipe
first
them out,
Death
they
Star
turn up again.
so the others
Doesn't
could be
feel like we're
evacuated?
winning.
For those of you familiar with The Force Unleashed, however, you know where this story is going. You see, Darth Vader wasn't particularly pleased with the untimely
cycle of war
demise of his
has to
former
end.
apprentice. Over the
Maybe I'll
last
discover
year,
how to break
he'd
it.
been engaged in a
Solve a
secret project on
millennia-old problem
Kamino
by
to clone
myself?
his former
No
apprentice.
pressure there.
He'd been aiming to
Guess
create
there
a
is one thing
perfect
we
clone
can
of
count
Marek
on.
that had
No
all
matter
of his
how
former
many times they
apprentice's
come
skills,
back,
but
the
none
Sith
of his
always
weaknesses.
go down in flames.
Each clone was given Marek's codename of Starkiller, as Vader was aiming for a clone that was completely disconnected from Galen Marek's life and life choices. The issue was that cloning Force sensitives is far more difficult than cloning non-Force users, like the clone troopers of the Republic, and Vader's experiments resulted in numerous failures. One of those was the Starkiller of this story. During a training session on Kamino, Vader made the mistake of telling Starkiller about Kota's capture on Cato Neimoidia, tasking him with eliminating the clone once his training was completed. However, this clone failed to pass Vader's vigorous tests, unable to fully separate himself from his progenitor's memories, and thus proving himself useless to the Sith's cause. Before Vader cut him down like all the failed experiments before him, Starkiller lashed out at him, pushing him back, then made a run for it. To get off Kamino, he hijacked Vader's personal TIE fighter and escaped, heading straight for Cato Neimoidia to rescue Kota.
Alright, guys.
In part, it was because his progenitor had been fond of the men, but mainly it was because Starkiller had one driving need: to find Juno Eclipse, Galen Marek's pilot and love interest. Since he hadn't changed the codes in the TIE he had stolen,